Silent Beast 4 on the left. We have House Stark on the right. Let's go through these teams here, DeFi.
Yes, Silent Beast has a Purified Sableye, Altaria, Bastiodon, Galarian Stunfisk, Trevenant, and Sirfetch'd. With House Stark, we have the Alolan Ninetales, Noctowl, Trevenant, Obstagoon, Galarian Stunfisk, and a Shadow Swampert.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to here in this particular battle. I personally didn't get to see too much action from the Bastiodon yesterday, but one of the more interesting Pokemon on Silent Beast team was the Sirfetch'd. We talked a little bit about it before yesterday with Butters, but one of the incredible benefits of that Sirfetch'd being able to pace the moves so quickly is that it can come out of matchups loaded with energy, ready to unleash a Leaf Blade or potentially even the hard-hitting Brave Bird versus its opponents. However, on House Stark's team, plenty of Pokemon to counter that relatively hard. We have the Noctowl, the flying type that's able to hit for super effective damage, as well as the Alolan Ninetales. We've seen how quickly those charms can add up versus those fighters.
We can, and I am personally loving the resurgence of flyers here in Baltimore. With Walrein being much less popular in the meta game, it's allowed flyers like Altaria, like Noctowl to be able to return to the meta, and Noctowl is by far one of my favorites.
It's interesting here, though, because we talked about a little bit of a decrease in the frequency of steals and frequencies of ice. We have two steel Pokemon on the side of Silent Beast, both the Bastiodon as well as the Galarian Stunfisk. Interestingly enough, does have some good targets on House Stark's team with the Noctowl and the Alolan Ninetales, but we're moving right into game number one. Guys, this top 8, the energy is electric. We have the Bastiodon making its appearance up against a Galarian Stunfisk, a terrible lead for the Bastiodon.
So we're going to see the Bastiodon return to its Pokeball immediately safe and sound, and we actually see the Altaria come in to counter the Galarian Stunfisk. Interesting move.
Yeah, interesting matchup for sure, but when we take a look at it, Silent Beast has 2 Pokemon weak to that Galarian Stunfisk, can't swap in the hard counter the Sirfetch'd, gonna bring in the next best answer after the Sirfetch'd, which is the Altaria. These Dragon Breaths, despite being resisted, are still gonna be adding up incrementally time after time. The one interesting thing about Altaria is that you can see it's able to tank 2 Rock Slides no problem, already able to get close to 2 Sky Attacks. Will definitely chip away at this Galarian Stunfisk, make it easier for the Bastiodon later in the matchup.
Yeah, so here we have the Altaria unleashing another Sky Attack onto the Galarian Stunfisk, but it's just a puff of wind for that Stunfisk. It is doing just fine, and throwing another Rock Slide, which will secure its victory. No shield here. The Altaria is heading back to Nurse Joy.
Altaria had to make a decision there. Silent Beast, rather, had to make a decision. Do I want to hold on to this energy and use my Protect Shield? Decides to let it go. All that energy goes to waste. Ooh, interesting play here. We have House Stark choosing to preserve the Galarian Stunfisk, save it for later in the matchup. We see the Trevenant come in, and now this brings out the Basti as well from Silent Beast.
Yes, and the Bastiodon's going to be doing just fine here. Shadow Balls are going to hit for neutral damage, but we know Bastiodon can just wall its opponents but just by its sheer force of defense and HP.
Well, at this point, House Stark has seen the Sirfetch'd and knows that, hey, I have the Noctowl in the back ready for that. So he's very content having this Bastiodon out here right now, knowing that he's still going to be able to line up his flyer versus the fighter later in the matchup. At this point, this Bastiodon is loaded in energy and going to start unleashing these flamethrowers. 0 bubbles on this one. Silent Beast knows this is going to be enough to knock out this Trevenant just before it gets to its next charge move.
Getting a little bit, one more smackdown of energy, but maybe a slight miscalculation, allowing the Trevenant to throw one last Seed Bomb and knock out the Bastiodon.
All right, at this point, it is 1 versus 3. It is the Sirfetch'd versus the world. Still 2 Protect Shields, but at this point, we can see these wing attacks coming in from the Noctowl. They're adding up very quickly. Still 2 Protect Shields on the side of House Stark as well. This is going to be a big uphill battle for the Sirfetch'd.
Yeah, the Sirfetch'd only can really throw Leaf Blades here because even though a Brave Bird would do quite a bit of damage, it would completely decimate Sirfetch'd's defenses. So we're just going to see, ooh, it looks like we are going to go for the Brave Bird, maybe hoping that maybe House Stark wouldn't shield it, but House Stark does put up that Protect Shield, securing the victory for House Stark in this first matchup.
Nicely played by House Stark for sure. Very nice recognition, swapping out that Galarian Stunfisk after the lead matchup, knowing that he can preserve it, get some good value out of it later on. The nice thing is that he did have that answer in the back for that that Surfetch, which was the Noctowl with 2 shields. Going to be surprised to see it in the lead here for Silent Beast in game 2.
And here we are kicking off that game 2. We have Trevenant versus Bastiodon again coming out in the lead for Silent Beast.
All right, we do see the Altaria in the back this time, but a little bit more of a positive matchup. The Bastiodon versus the Trevenant here, not so bad. You can see those smackdowns adding up very quickly, but Trevenant's going to be able to pace the energy much quicker and already able to get to the Shadow Ball. This is going to deal a nice chunk of damage, but Bastiodon, one of the sturdiest Pokemon in the Pokemon Go meta, able to tank it no problem.
And we have continuing just the Bastiodon continuing to throw those smackdowns, and we have this flamethrower going through, but How Stark knowingly puts up a shield to protect the Trevenant, knowing that Trevenant can just continue applying pressure. And here comes the Surfetch.
Okay, a quick swap from the Surfetch. We actually saw both of its moves in the last game. We saw the Leaf Blade Brave Bird combination. At this point, Surfetch want to protect its HP. We see the first Protect Shield coming out on the side of Silent Beast. There's a good answer in the back for How Stark, but perhaps he wants to save it for later on. We see the second Leaf Blade coming out. At this point, it may not be quite enough to knock out this Trevenant. How Stark going to go ahead and let it go?
Ooh, but the Trevenant survives on just a quick little bit of HP, is able to throw this Seed Bomb, which will really threaten the Surfetch and forces a shield on the part of Silent Beast.
Both shields coming out from Silent Beast is loaded on energy for a Surfetch, but now we see the Noctowl come out, gonna try and desperately pace to this Brave Bird. We're gonna see it get there just before the Sky Attack, and able to get there just before it was farmed all the way down and knocked out. Going for the big move here. Big call for How Stark. What's he gonna do? He lets the Brave Bird through, and that's a lot of damage, DeFi.
It is, but the Noctowl is a bulky bird and is able to survive on just a small amount of HP. We see How Stark desperately tapping to bring in the Galarian Stunfisk to face the Bastiodon, and then here comes the Altaria. We saw this matchup earlier, Altaria versus Galarian Stunfisk. Altaria can apply a little bit of pressure, but these Rock Slides are going to be coming through fast and furious.
There's 2 Pokemon that this Galarian Stunfisk wants to see on Silent Beast's team, and they're the 2 Pokemon that Silent Beast still has. It's the Altaria, it's the Bastiodon. Great matchups versus both of these. You could see How Stark nodding his head. He was predicting that Altaria in the back. Very, very nice. Able to get to these Rock Slides. It will take 3, but then that matchup versus the Bastiodon, it is very one-sided. Despite being able to hit for super effective with its Flamethrower, those Mud Shots are double super effective. Earthquake's double super effective. With no Protect Shields left, this is going to be very tough for Silent Beast to come back from.
Right, and the Galarian Stunfisk still has a shield on its side of the field, so even if the Bastiodon is able to throw a Flamethrower, Galarian Stunfisk can hide behind that last shield. So here comes the Bastiodon, and the Galarian Stunfisk is quickly approaching an Earthquake.
Yeah, at this point, going to be able to outpace How Stark with a very clean 2-0. The Galarian Stunfisk was definitely the MVP for this matchup, but How Stark able to masterfully line his Pokemon exactly how he needed. He got the Noctowl on the Surfetch. He was able to get the Galarian Stunfisk on the Bastiodon and the Altaria. Nicely played. 2-0 from How Stark to move on here. Bracket, so even a loss for either of these opponents, they'll move to the losers bracket, whereas the winners will advance to go face off versus How Stark. But we're moving into game number 1. We've got the Obstagoon versus the Trevenant. Dunebug with a nod. He knows it has a good matchup.
All right, taking a look, Dunebug's Obstagoon, it looks really, really solid here. It is rocking the Night Slash and the Cross Chop. Night Slash going to go ahead and start spamming that out. We might see a Boostagoon, an Obstagoon with that attack boost.
Yeah, Night Slash with the opportunity to increase the user's attack stage by 2 stages. Going to go ahead and throw this Night Slash. It was actually a CMP charge move priority event with Trevenant winning. The first Night Slash comes out. There is a boost here. Our first boost that we've seen right away. This is going to be incredibly impactful. These counters, despite being double resisted, are already adding up. But Dunebug, he knows that, hey, I have the matchup that I want. This Obstagoon may not have too much value later on in the matchup, and wisely decides to let the second Seed Bomb go.
Look at those boosted counters, even though they are resisted on the Trevenant, slowly starting to chip away at its remaining health, and the Obstagoon throws a boosted Night Slash. Doesn't need that much power, but certainly has it, and the Obstagoon has energy left over. We can see Dunebug tapping right over where that Night Slash is, hoping to get another one to go on to the Altaria. Now this is a double attack stage boosted Night Slash, so it is going to take a chunk out of the Altaria.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. Will be farmed down at this point, so this Altaria is going to have a big energy advantage for Elam. Elam actually has pretty nice matchups here. The Trevenant is going to not do very well versus that Altaria, but you take a look at that HP, already 1/3 of his HP taken out. Probably, oh, and surprises me here, opts to instead bring in the Trevenant. This is actually a very heads-up play when you think about it, because when you take a look, that Trevenant has a terrible matchup versus the Lickitung in the back. Dunebug perhaps a step ahead, understanding that this is the best matchup for the Trevenant at this point.
Yes, so we're looking at potentially seeing a Lickitung versus Altaria matchup later on. But let's go ahead and see the Trevenant trying to bait here with the Seed Bomb, successfully draws the shield on the side of Elam. So we have one shield left on either side of the field.
All right, well, Elam able to actually get both Protect Shields on the side of Dunebug, wanting to preserve this Trevenant. We're going to see the second Protect Shield come out, able to shield that super effective Sky Attack. Now the Lickitung comes in. That's going to draw out the Altaria on the side of Dunebug. Relatively neutral matchup. Both of these Pokemon with one-turn moves. The Dragon Breath versus the Licks. The Altaria able to get to the Sky Attack here. Elam saying, hey, I need to preserve this Lickitung. My Altaria is not looking too hot. Goes ahead and shields the Sky Attack.
Yes, so we're going to go ahead and see that that was the last shield left in play today, and the Lickitung is going to start throwing out those same type attack bonus body slams. Again, we're starting to chip slowly away. The Altaria is down to half health, but those Dragon Breaths are not something to ignore. They are very powerful and bringing the Lickitung to about half health at this point.
All right, well, Dunebug now able to get to another Sky Attack on the Altaria, bringing the Lickitung into the red, but Elam's Lickitung is absolutely loaded with energy, able to get to this Body Slam. However, after this Body Slam plus a few licks, I think we might see this Trevenant come back in. I think Dunebug wants to bring it in, but unfortunately going to get licked all the way down. This Lickitung is loaded on energy, and oh, and we see a swap to catch the Seed Bomb. What a play here. Dunebug's energy on his Trevenant gonna go to naught here. This is a double resisted Seed Bomb on Elam's Altaria.
Yes, and the Altaria is going to be, it might be able to put even some more energy off of this Trevenant to take its health down even further, bringing in the Lickitung, and it looks like the Trevenant was able to get the move in first.
Yeah, unfortunately here for Elam, it is his Lickitung at very low attack stat, not going to win charge move priority. Dunebug knows that he can get that farm down versus the Altaria, come out with energy, and secure game one. Nicely played by Dunebug, without a doubt. When we take a look at that matchup though, DeFi, a great lead for Dunebug, without a doubt, getting his Obstagoon lined up versus that Trevenant. We talked about it, but that Obstagoon has a lot of play across the board, not only versus the Trevenant, but versus the Galarian Stunfisk, versus the Lickitung. So he was able to get some good value, and with the boost, provided a bit more chip onto that Altaria. Perhaps if we hadn't have seen that boost, the +2 attack stage boost for that Obstagoon, it would have chipped a little bit less on Elam's Altaria. We may have seen a different outcome.
Yes, for sure. Honestly, the alignment was so key here, Wholesome, because both players brought Altaria, both players brought Trevenant. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So Obstagoon, Dune had Obstagoon, and Elam had Lickitung. Had the lead been different, I think we could have seen two mirror matches, and then the Obstagoon would have had a much better matchup against the Lickitung.
I'm a bit surprised with Elam actually, the order that he brought his team. He had the Trevenant and the Lickitung in a bit of an ABA week 2 Obstagoon type of scenario. So I would be a little bit less surprised if I saw the Altaria lead for Elam, which Dunebug doesn't have as many answers for. Yes, he has the Azumarill. Yes, he has the Galarian Stunfisk, but I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to get that Obstagoon in the lead, knowing that there's so many targets on Elam's team once again.
Yeah, so what can Elam do to be able to really counter that Obstagoon? Perhaps bringing in the Medicham, because again, Obstagoon is so weak to opposing counter users. Perhaps the Swampert bringing perhaps a little bit more coverage against Obstagoon, but Swampert has such a terrible matchup against Trevenant.
Yeah, when you look at the Medicham on the side of Elam, it's really hard to bring, just due to the fact that it loses so hard versus Altaria, loses versus Trevenant incredibly hard, loses to Nidoqueen, loses to Azumarill as well. There's not a lot of neutral matchups for it. You win versus the Obstagoon and you win versus the Galarian Stunfisk, but the rest of those matchups are pretty negative. When you take a look at, to your point, hey, how do I take out this Obstagoon? What's my answer to it? You have to use something a bit more neutral, most likely going to be the Altaria, maybe the Swampert like you mentioned as well, but we're moving into game number 2. No shocks here, called it just a second ago. We see the Altaria lead for Elam, but but met by the own Altaria for Dunebug.
Yeah, so we have on our hands an Altaria mirror match, and unfortunately, Shinies do not do more damage inherently, so it is pretty even here on the battlefield this morning.
All right, we're going to see Elam the first to get to the move, throws the Sky Attack and a shield coming out from Dunebug. Going to be able to throw his own move here pretty soon. Wants to farm up a bit more energy. It's going to take a while for Elam to get to that second Sky Attack. Both Pokemon now down into the red. We are going to see Elam going to have to make a decision. Do I want to hang on to this Altaria and try and win switch? No, decides to let it go. Dunebug is going to be taking the lead matchup here, which may prove very impactful considering that Elam has a Pokemon that he'd love to get lined up versus that Trevenant and his Lickitung.
Yes, and I am so surprised that Dunebug left his Goon on the bench. The Obstagoon is nowhere to be seen right now, so perhaps playing a little bit of mind games here.
I really like this play from Elam, though. Even though he doesn't know what's in the back, he wants to get energy on his Trevenant. Energy goes so quickly on Trevenant, and now what is this? Dunebug actually hard swapping in his Trevenant. This is going to pull out the Lickitung from Elam. I'm really liking this game for Elam. He's got the matchup that he wants. No Obstagoon in sight here. He has his Lickitung locked in versus this Trevenant.
Yes, and we are going to see that super effective lick damage onto the Trevenant make quick work of this Ghost-type Pokemon. And unfortunately, the Shadow Claws on the side of Dunebug aren't going to do anything to this Lickitung. It has to rely on Seed Bomb damage.
What we're going to see here at the back now is going to be the Trevenant matched up versus the Galarian Stunfisk. Galarian Stunfisk is going to need 2 Rock Slides to knock out that Trevenant. So with the Protect Shield still remaining, it's going to be a tough matchup for it, especially with that Trevenant already having some energy. But don't forget that Dunebug still has the Altaria at this point. We're going to see what he brings in. My guess is the Galarian Stunfisk preserving the Altaria for a catch later on. And there it is. Galarian Stunfisk comes in. This Lickitung still has quite a bit of energy. Able to get to this Power Whip definitely before the Earthquake. We now see the Galarian Stunfisk getting to the Earthquake, but no, the Power Whip comes out from Elam.
Excellent, and this Power Whip is going to do a significant amount of damage to the Galarian Stunfisk. It has to use that energy somehow, and Body Slams just are not going to cut it. Look at how much energy this Galarian Stunfisk has, is going straight for the Earthquake to clear the Lickitung off of the battlefield.
Yeah, Rock Slide's not going to be enough to knock out, but at this point, Elam, he's already loaded on energy, and we need 2 Rock Slides to knock out this Trevenant here, but you still have a Protect Shield on the side of Elam. Big decision here for Dunebug, and we actually see a no shield coming through. This is going to be the Shadow Ball, enough to knock out the Galarian Stunfisk. It's now Trevenant versus this Altaria. Altaria, no energy and almost no HP. This game is going to be going to Elam, tying up the series 1-1.
Exactly. So we have here, Wholesome, a decisive game 3.
That's right. We love to see the decisive game number 3. I gotta say, I really like the adjustment here from Elam. I talked a little bit about it in after game number 1, but that Altaria needs to get put into the lead. It's going to be the best neutral answer to that Obstagoon. I'm surprised a little bit by Dunebug actually not bringing that Obstagoon. It would have had nice play in the back, both versus that Lickitung as well as versus that Trevenant. So if Dunebug had actually hit that in the back, it would have been very, very nice. However, perhaps Dunebug was thinking, well, Elam's going to be over-adjusting to my Obstagoon at this point, and I'm actually going to leave it on the bench and bring some things that'll counter some of its counters, like the Galarian Stunfisk. But it worked out nicely for Elam. So we're going to have to see how these battlers adjust for game number 3. I expect to see the Obstagoon back in game number 3 for Dunebug.
I agree. Elam decided, I believe, stuck with the same 3 Pokemon, just changed up the alignment a little bit over on Elam's side of the field. The Trevenant, the Altaria, and the Lickitung do work really well together, but have to watch out for the Obstagoon, because I do agree, I believe the Obstagoon will be coming back.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense the way that he lined it up. Like I mentioned, in the game number 1, he had the ABA week to Obstagoon, which is very, very challenging. If there's an Obstagoon anywhere in the team, not having your counter to that Obstagoon in the lead makes it very challenging. Even if you swap out, it's hard to get the alignment that you want. In game number 2, having the Altaria in the lead, even if the Obstagoon had been there, makes it a lot easier to deal with. At this point, though, I think we might be seeing Elam bringing his hard counter to the Obstagoon in the Medicham. Yes, there it is. We have the Medicham lined up into the Obstagoon. This is exactly what Elam wants to see. This is the best case scenario.
Yes, so the Medicham is going to scare that Obstagoon away, and it's going to bring out a different matchup entirely. We have Doonbug's Altaria up against the Galarian Stunfisk on the side of Elam. Elam definitely seems to be in the driver's seat of this match.
Without a doubt, on paper, this is looking really nice for Elam. Doonbug's going to have to find a way to adjust, try and find that win con, because he is up against a wall at this point. A terrible lead matchup with his Obstagoon into a double super effective hitting Medicham. Now has his Altaria lined up versus the Steel-type Galarian Stunfisk. We've seen these matchups multiple times. Going to need 3 Rock Slides to actually knock out, but this is a very one-sided matchup. This Galarian Stunfisk may actually be able to come out of this matchup with energy as well and get to an Earthquake before that Obstagoon can take it out.
Oh, and that Rock Slide takes the Altaria way down into the red. The Altaria going right for that Moonblast. It is not going to be nearly enough. It is resisted on the Steel-type Galarian Stunfisk, but takes it down almost right into the red. Just needs some more Dragon Breaths. Altaria might need to get to another Sky Attack to threaten, but I think at this point, Doonbug is going to let the Altaria go back to its Pokeball. It has done some good work, and I think we might see the Obstagoon, we might see the Azumarill, and it is the Azumarill being able to put on some really good fast move pressure with Bubble against Elam's Galarian Stunfisk.
No, yeah, this is a smart play by Doonbug. He knows his Obstagoon lineup versus that Medicham is basically useless. He's going to have to use this this Azumarill if he's going to want to try and win this matchup. Comes out with 5 bubbles worth of energy, able to get to that Ice Beam. So now this Lickitung is going to be met versus this Azumarill. Lickitung, a nice answer to this Azumarill without a doubt, able to hit super effective with his Power Whips. But at this point, most likely going to be going for Body Slams, Elam will, since we've already done so much chip damage from that Galarian Stunfisk. Things are looking great for Elam here, D5.
Things are looking amazing here for Elam as Elam gets to that Power Whip, which would do super effective damage and really threaten to send the Azumarill away, which forces a shield on the side of Doonbug. But Azumarill is already at both of its charge moves. Ice Beam and Play Rough goes right for the more powerful Play Rough, which does benefit from that same type attack bonus, forcing a shield on the side of Elam. So we are at 1 shield on either side.
Yeah, good recognition from Elam. He knows that he's not going to need shields for the Medicham. There is nothing from that Obstagoon that's going to threaten the Medicham. It's going to be able to hit for neutral with its Night Slashes, but unless there's a crazy boost scenario, maybe a 4x boost, we're not going to be seeing that. But this one's looking pretty straightforward. You can see Elam with these double super effective counters, absolutely chunking this Obstagoon. Obstagoon desperately trying to race to these charge moves, but look at this. After 7 counters, already almost in the red is the Obstagoon of Doonbug.
Yes, that Doonbug is going to be desperately trying to throw Night Slash, trying to get that boost again, but just cannot do it. So, and the Azumarill tries to throw a quick bubble. This match goes to Elam. Elam advancing in the winners.
Elam taking the 2-1 victory versus Doonbug after going down 1-0 in a very tough lead matchup, able to come back with a reverse sweep 2-1. He'll be facing off versus House Stark later on in the winners matchups. But congratulations to Elam. I gotta say, looking at those matchups, the key Pokemon was Obstagoon. Game number 1, you saw the Obstagoon do some incredible work. I have to say, Elam did
not threatened by anything on Wadaj's team. You do protect shield this Weather Ball. Let's check the other charge move. It is running the Earthquake, so it does not have that super effective Sludge Wave. Now coming with the Umbreon to soak all of this energy. Great.
And Skeptical Trainer just lets it go.
Yeah, this is sure to knock out the Swampert at this low health, and it does so. And now the decision is how much momentum can you get out of this? How much can you undercharge a Zap Cannon or a Focus Blast? You probably want to come out of this matchup with energy.
You need to have
energy.
You need to have energy if coming out of this matchup, because on Wadaj's side of the field, I feel like you send in the Swampert as soon as this Umbreon goes down, since that will have the best matchup against Registeel. And if you're able to have a Zap Cannon already stored for a possible attack drop, or maybe even a Focus Blast for damage, that makes it so much easier to power through the Swampert. But it will be energy dry, and if Swampert has that Hydro Cannon banked and ready to go, that is an instant throw to give Wadaj the win in this first game.
Pretty dominant win by Wadaj there. Perfect alignment, knocking out the Registeel 1-0.
That was an incredible play from Wadaj. Really won the first matchup in terms of having that Ninetales out against the Sableye, immediately putting that pressure on Skeptical Tracer. Going into game 2, I would imagine that if Skeptical Tracer does want to bring that Purified Sableye again, which I'm assuming he will. It is one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. You can't lead with it because you have to respect the threat of that Alolan Ninetales, just putting that pressure down immediately.
Yeah, that's the risk there, because looking at these two team competitions, Wadaj's Alolan Ninetales only has one threat. It's pretty much only threatened by the Registeel. So it's probably going to be in most team compositions for Wadaj. So maybe Skeptical Tracer was saying, oh, you're probably going to keep that in the back to double shield it for a win condition. So I'm going to try to hide my Sableye in the front, and Wadaj just calls it. Brings that Alolan Ninetales lead, thinking that you're not going to lead the Registeel, as we're already locked into this game number 2 here. Skeptical Tracer versus Wadaj. It's going to be once again the Sableye, but it's hidden from the Alolan Ninetales because it's a Swampert lead.
Yeah, and the Swampert is going to be still getting a lot of energy thanks to the Hydro Cannon and the Mud Shot combination, but that Sableye has a much better matchup against the Swampert. Will be able to make a significant dent in it as Wadaj builds up to 2 Hydro Cannons before Skeptical Trainer finally throws the first charge move of the match in that foul play.
Yes, and now the Swampert has a decision to go for the Earthquake or go for the Hydro Cannons, and it goes for the big play. I love this play. Yes!
He lets it go!
It's no shielded, and this is maybe not quite enough to knock out, but you will probably get the Mud Shot down. No! It does!
That is such a huge knockout early on in this game, too. Sableye is such a fantastic safe swap Pokemon, and now it's no longer available. Trevenant will come in and have the matchup advantage against this Swampert, especially since it's taken so much damage. But Wadaj certainly has Pokemon in his backline that can manage that.
And this is going to be tough because if you want to full Shadow Claw this thing down, you're going to have to take a lot of Hydro Cannons. Perfect timing, the charge move priority of that Swampert. So now this Trevenant will have a little bit of energy and a shield advantage versus Wadaj's backline.
Wadaj could send in the Shadow Nidoqueen or that Alolan Ninetales. Opts for the Nidoqueen right now, which Skeptical Tracer could decide to swap in that Swampert at any point in time, but is first going to throw this Shadow Ball, which is called by Wadaj.
And here is the Protect Shields. No Protect Shields left from Wadaj. I expect a pivot. There it is. It is the Swampert in the back. This is just a poison thing, but you're going to be debuffed, and in the back is that Alolan Ninetales that is going to be pressuring you with the Fast Move Charm.
I have to wonder that Ninetales will be making an instant appearance back on the field. And again, just look at how oppressive Charm is. Even though Wadaj doesn't have any shields remaining, that Swampert is only a couple of fast moves away from getting knockout. And this Hydro Cannon just doesn't do enough damage to make up for it. But the second one is already there.
Oh, this is going to knock out the Alolan Ninetales, but a little bit unfortunate timing by Skeptical Tracer. Took maybe one more Charm than he needed to. So I think he's probably going to get Poison Jab down, and 2 Poison Jabs does it. And there's 2 Protect Shields left for Skeptical Tracer, but he's going to have no chance to use them.
Oh, that Poison Fang isn't even needed anymore as Nidoqueen is able to knock out that Trevenant with those fast moves, and Wadaj wins this set 2-0, knocking out Skeptical Tracer.
Running 1 Steel type, and it is that Skarmory.
Super interesting team composition from both of these trainers, and I think that's exactly why we're seeing them here in Top Cut, because it helps that you're an amazing trainer. It helps that you're, consistently making an appearance on the online leaderboards, possibly in grassroots tournaments as well. But having that experience and being able to recognize, this is the meta game. This is what I need to be one step ahead of. Maybe I don't necessarily need the Galarian Stunfisks of the world in order to carry myself through to the Top Cut. And I guess the biggest thing on my mind here is that, Skarmory is a big threat for Onion Frank. What exactly does he have to answer it other than the Stunfisk? Because assuming that Hot Pocket can bring the Medicham or possibly even the Lickitung to help manage that Stunfisk. Of course, the Swampert as well. Fantastic answer. I think that Onion Frank will really struggle if that Skarmory finds alignment against a majority of his team.
It's a great point. Skarmory seems like a force against Onion Frank's team, and it's scary to bring that Swampert with it because there's probably going to be a Shadow Razor Leafer as we get the Altaria into Medicham lead, which is a slight positive lead for that Altaria.
Exactly. Onion Frank having the advantage with that Altaria, going to be using the 1-turn Dragon Breath to get a ton of energy, but that Medicham will still outpace it to an Ice Punch and throws right on the charge move priority event, but that Altaria actually wins with the Sky Attack, drawing the first shield from Hot Pocket.
And I think this matchup is going to come down to alignment a lot because as you see that back line, there is that Skarmory Swampert core. So you want to match up that Swampert onto the Galarian Stunfisk and not have to put your Skarmory on it. And here's a no Protect Shield on this double super effective Ice Punch.
It does a ton of damage, but it does not threaten a knockout. Hot Pocket will need a second one to get that and will throw that as soon as it's available for him, drawing Onion Frank's first shield. But even though Altaria is in the red, it will be resisting the fast attacks from this Medicham, and as a result gets to the second Sky Attack, but Hot Pocket invests double shields.
Instantly uses that Protect Shield. Hot Pocket has a plan here. Wants to go for the alignment, wants to maybe try to get to 2 Ice Punches before the next Sky Attack or get a counter down. I don't think the counter down is possible. You have to get to 2 Ice Punches if this next Protect Shield is matched.
It is not matched, and that Altaria is knocked out. Onion Frank sending in his own Medicham now to get some energy for the knockout. Interestingly enough, both these trainers running Psychic and Ice Punch on their Medichams. No power-up punches in sight.
This is not terrible. You get a little carry over momentum on the Medicham here. Not only did you knock out the Altaria, but you brought this Medicham to half health, and you have the Skarmory to soak up this energy. We see instantly Onion Frank is looking for a pivot here. I think you will. Oh, it's the Swampert, and he called the pivot, so now he has an energy advantage. No way, he swaps in the Skarmory. Oh no!
I think Hot Pocket might have made a bit of a misclick there, but it looks like he's taking it with all smiles. That Skarmory will be taking a ton of damage from this rock slide, but hey, maybe you can recover from this. It looks like he's pretty animated about it, at least.
Wow, what a turn of events there. I thought that was such a brilliant call to call the pivot and get that mudshot advantage on the one-turn switch, but then he instantly swapped into that Skarmory, and it's met up by this Galarian Stunfisk, and like you said, chuckling about it with Onion Frank as this matchup plays out.
It's always great when you can tell the two trainers facing off in such a high-stakes match are good friends, and as the Sky Attack doesn't do a lot of damage to the Stunfisk, it will start to eat away at this switch timer, so it's possible that Hot Pocket could try to realign in a couple of seconds once that is over, but most likely the Skarmory will be knocked out by that point.
Yeah, and you are at the Brave Bird here, so you're going to be doing a good amount of damage to this Galarian Stunfisk, and no Protect Shield is already quite low. Skarmory did a pretty good job here, and you swap, and it's an instant swap, but this Psychic is already ready. The Swampert can take one of it. This is maybe not over, Gabby.
It's going to be close as Swampert has a little bit of energy on it, needs to get to that critical Hydro Cannon, and probably even 2 of them, given that Onion Frank still has a shield remaining, but that Medicham is able to outpace to that Ice Punch, will throw it immediately, and this will do neutral damage, most likely will be enough for the KO.
Yeah, it gets knocked out here. I'm surprised not throwing the Hydro Cannon. This Medicham is doing neutral counters, but it's enough to take out that Skarmory.
Onion Frank winning game 1 in the set, but it is all smiles all around going into game 2 now. I think that had Hot Pocket maybe sent in that Skarmory and swapped into the Swampert, we'd be looking at a very different matchup, which does bring the question of how you adjust in terms of this game. You know, knowing that it was primarily let's call it a user error maybe, that gave you the disadvantage. Do you make a Pokemon adjustment, or do you just assume, I'm going to play this correctly this time?
Yeah, you might think this game is just completely a wash because it was a user error. That's why you saw Hot Pocket still has a smile on his face. You can see it through the mask there. The thing is, you can still learn from the team composition. You know that Galarian Stunfisk was in the back for Onion Frank, and you know the lead was Altaria, and that's very smart because Altaria versus Skarmory is not terrible. Surprisingly, even though you're doing all resisted damage, that's the strength of the Altaria, where in the one Protect Shield situation, if they're both going Sky Attacks, it's not an awful matchup. So if that Skarmory was in the lead, I think Onion Frank would just probably play it out, and it wouldn't be awful. So now we know that Onion Frank was probably keeping the Galarian Stunfisk in the back and having maybe a soft loss in the front.
Interesting things to keep in mind as these two trainers are adjusting. I think that if you're Hot Pocket, though, you probably still bring the Skarmory. I mean, I think that it is such a strong Pokemon in this matchup, and I don't think that the way that game played out or the possible adjustments from Onion Frank necessarily mean that you leave it on the bench for the next game.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw how much it did to that Galarian Stunfisk there. That was impressive. It takes a bunch of rock slides, it throws the Sky Attacks, and before it leaves, it gets to the Brave Bird. And the crucial factor there is you mentioned in the game that it's already getting back to the switch timer. That is a very hard thing to do as a flying type versus rock type damage. So being able to get back to your switch timer gives a lot more versatility to the Skarmory in this matchup, because as you know, if there is that Shadow Razor Leaf Victory Bell in there, even a little bit of Skarmory's health will go a long way.
Even a little bit will go a long way. This is going to be game 2 of this losers round 1 matchup, and it's the Lickitung facing off against the Alolan Ninetales on Onion Frank's side of the field. It looks like both of these trainers made some Pokemon adjustments going into this set.
Yes, the Shadow Victory Bells in the back, and that is scary for Hot Pocket because Sableye does not like those Razor Leafs, and the Victory Bell resists the counters from Medicham as this Body Slam goes through. So I don't even know if alignment matters here. I think somehow you have to gain some momentum to take out that Shadow Victory Bell as the Weather Ball hits.
I was going to say the momentum you gain is going to be so important here, and I'm not sure how Hot Pocket can do that if that Lickitung is consistently taking damage from this Alolan Ninetales. If Onion Frank doesn't shield this, then it's possible that the Lickitung will be able to use Lick to knock out the Alolan Ninetales, but we see the shield come through, and it's going to be 4 charms, and that Lickitung just barely getting to the Body Slam in time.
Wow, taking both Protect Shields here. This is exactly what Hot Pocket might need. No Protect Shields to guard that Shadow Victory Bell, and you're going to try to counter down this Alolan Ninetales. No Protect Shield on this Weather Ball, but the thing is, you're going to have an Ice Punch. Shadow Victory Bell does not want to take a single charge move.
It really doesn't, and the Medicham is able to counter down the Alolan Ninetales, but look at how much damage is already on that Pokemon from the Charm, and now look at how much damage the Medicham is taking from those Razor Leafs. This Shadow Punch will connect with the Victory Bell, but is it going to be enough to knock out in 1 hit, or is this Sableye going to have to finish up the job?
Almost. You want to try to get the Shadow Claw down before the Leaf Blade gets there, but the swap out into the Galarian Stunfisk here, and it has no Protect Shields remaining, and the foul play is going to land. One big play by Hot Pocket there. He did pause before he threw the Ice Punch to ensure that it's not swapped onto the Galarian Stunfisk, but there's 2 Protect Shields left for the Sableye.
I was going to say the Sableye has plenty of bulk thanks to these Protect Shields, and goes ahead and throws immediately here to stop this Rock Slide from connecting. It's going to take most likely 2 more foul plays to pick up the knockout on this Galarian Stunfisk, unless you can get a couple more Shadow Claws on top of that. And then with the Shadow Victory Bell in the back, there's no energy on that Medicham, so it's probably just going to try to swap in and take an attack for the Sableye. Maybe you can Shadow Claw it down at this point in time. It's already in the red.
This is going to be really close because you're out of Protect Shields here. This Victory Bell is close to a Leaf Blade. You need to get to that foul play first because a Shadow Victory Bell Leaf Blade is going to do a lot. You're at the foul play.
Oh, no, but he didn't throw
it.
it. He had it available to him, but instead tried to go for the Shadow Claw down and just barely missed out by a single turn on that knockout. Leaf Blade will be enough to knock out. Here comes the Medicham with the counter. It picks up the knockout, and that's a tied up set for Hot Pocket and Onion Frank.
Wow, I mean, the composure there, because he could have just thrown the foul play, but knowing that the Victory Bell was so low anyway that he could just counter, just lets the Leaf Blade through with a little smirk. I mean, I think these are 2 friends going at it here, and it's tied 1-1.
Talk about a stressful way to win a game, though. I would have personally just thrown the foul play and been like, okay, maybe I can take a couple extra seconds to breathe going into this next matchup. But, you know, again, it's great that these 2 trainers are friends because you're really seeing that come through in their play style, like you said. But the pressure is now on. Whoever loses this final game in this set will be going home. And with that on the line, you know, as great as it is that you're having a good time, you got to put the competitive sunglasses on and, you know, get your head in the game.
Yeah, speaking about the stress, I know Hot Pocket's mom is out there,
oh,
and
no.
I asked her if she gets stressed when he's on stream, and she says every single time. So Hot Pocket, stop stressing her out so much and throw the foul play here as we get into this game number 3. Weird series so far because that game number 1, we kind of had like a little user error swapping into the Skarmory on the Galarian Stunfisk. And then game number 2, double Protect Shielding for full alignment in the back was Onion Frank, and that Lickitung just barely holding on to get that Body Slam and the Protect Shield advantage. And that was huge because as you saw, that super effective Ice Punch almost knocked out that Shadow Victory Bell.
It did, and going into game 3, that seems like another great thing to rely on if you're expecting Onion Frank to rely on his signature Pokemon out in the lead against the Purified Sableye on Hot Pocket's side of the field. And Hot Pocket did actually bring the Skarmory this time.
But this is scary because I mentioned before that Shadow Razor Leaf is used as a tool for alignment. You can Protect Shield through this Sableye and completely razor leaf through before it gets to another foul play. So there's the pivot. Really smart move by Hot Pocket there.
Really smart move. This Lickitung's bulk will be able to take these shadow boosted attacks a bit better than the Sableye. Will shield this first Leaf Blade, and we see Onion Frank adjusting, sending in the Altaria to take on this Lickitung.
And we've seen this neutral matchup play out. Altaria has a slight advantage here if neither of these Pokemon use Protect Shields. Has just, I mean, they both have a ton of bulk, but with the Dragon Breath and Sky Attack adding up, both having same type attack bonus, and I think the Lickitung not having that on the Lick is the key difference.
It is, as we see Hot Pocket use his final shield for this game. Will get to a body slam or and a half prior to the Sky Attack coming out from that Altaria, but Onion Frank holding on to that last shield. I think knowing that it would be 2 more body slams at this point to pick up the knockout on that Altaria.
And the timer's almost back up, trying to swap out on the Sky Attack, doesn't quite get it. There's no Protect Shields remaining from Hot Pocket. This Lickitung is going to be quite low, but still alive. Does he try to go for a pivot? There's that pivot, trying to get to the energy, and this is good because you need to get energy to knock out that Shadow Victory Bell, but we know there is that Galarian Stunfisk in the back.
There is the Galarian Stunfisk. Onion Frank taking a moment to think through his options here in this matchup. I believe Sableye needs a couple more turns of energy. Gets to the foul play in time, though. Will throw it immediately now that the Victory Bell is out on the field. And Onion Frank, thinking about where he needs that shield, decides to save it for the Galarian Stunfisk, who is his final remaining Pokemon in the set.
And can this Sableye get to a foul play? This is going to be, no, doesn't get there. Gets mud shot down. That could have been the game there to get some chip damage onto that Galarian Stunfisk, because the Skarmory is going to have a tough time doing damage.
You know, we saw the Skarmory take out about half of that Galarian Stunfisk's health in the previous game. We know that Skarmory also has the Lickitung in the back to possibly take away the defensive drops from a Brave Bird, if that's how Hot Pocket decides to play this. But I don't know if there's enough time for the Skarmory to get to the number of charged moves needed to outpace these rock slides.
And the thing is, you still have that Lickitung. It has a little bit of energy and a little bit of health, because you can use it as a Protect Shield or a little bit of chip damage in the back as this rock slide comes in. Only one more rock slide will do it. This Skarmory has its back against the wall.
It has its back against the wall, but here comes the flying type attack. I believe that was a Brave Bird from the Skarmory. Sky Attack, actually, the shield is deployed, and now Skarmory will... Oh, that's an amazing catch with the rock slide onto that Lickitung, but it looks like Hot Pocket was shaking his head. It's possible that it just doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, because even though that was an amazing swap, it's still out of range of this Brave Bird. We saw the last matchup, this Galarian Stunfisk can take it, and there's no way this Skarmory can outpace to another move. So takes it, and it's just going to outpace to this rock slide to take it 2-1.
What an incredibly exciting set between these two friends. Unfortunately, though, Hot Pocket has been knocked out of the tournament, finishing just in top 8. But what an incredible accomplishment for really his first time competing here for this season. And you know that he's going to go far again with that amazing Skarmory combination that we saw him use. So what to expect. And the fact that we're able to sort of draw similar trends between that point in time and this point in time in the metagame is super exciting. But for now, it is time to get this match started. Galarian Stunfisk versus the Medicham from Wadaj.
Favorable lead, and it looks like going to be favorable counter swap here from Wadaj, because matching up this Shadow Nidoqueen, at least this Azumarill is probably poised to get a Protect Shield out of it.
The Poison Fang will be the first charged move of choice for Wadaj. No shield from Dunebug. That's going to be super effective damage, but more importantly, it will drop the defense of that Azumarill by 1 stage, which means those fast-type poison moves are going to be doing so much more damage.
And does get that Protect Shield at least, so you can have a 2 Protect Shield Pokemon in the back if you want to try to sweep a bit, and you don't get to that second Ice Beam, the full Poison Jab down, and it's loaded with energy, and you don't really have a good option to soak it, because Galarian Stunfisk doesn't want to take Earth Power, and Altaria doesn't want to take too many Poison Fangs.
Yeah, but at least with the Stunfisk, you can protect it with those Protect Shields, as if Wadaj does throw the Earth Power, which is the move of choice at this point in time, that will not guarantee the defensive drop. And we do see that first shield deployed by Dunebug to protect the Galarian Stunfisk.
Huge call. You have to throw before the next Earth Power, so perfect timing there from Dunebug, able to knock out the Shadow Nidoqueen, and not terrible. You did lose alignment here, but at least you got a little bit of energy advantage out of it because you took almost no fast move pressure damage, instant swap, counter swap, Skarmory versus Altaria.
Now this is quite the matchup that I feel like sums up the top cut so far in this tournament. You have the Altaria, the flying dragon type Pokemon, versus Skarmory, the flying steel type Pokemon. Both are going to be using Sky Attack to try and deal some damage to the other. I guess it's possible that you could throw a Brave Bird here, but with that switch timer still having about halfway to go, I don't think you necessarily want to take that risk.
Yeah, you're switch locked, and maybe the Altaria is not in the Brave Bird range, so you just throw the Sky Attack. This is an original matchup of early Pokemon Go PvP, but like you mentioned, Brave Bird wasn't available for Skarmory then, but it is available now. Getting the Protect Shield here, that is crucial as this Altaria looks to knock out this Skarmory. The Medicham still has an amazing matchup in the back.
The Skarmory is getting to such low health, but Dunebug throws the Sky Attack to finish the job. Wadaj saving that shield, knowing that he's going to need as much time as possible with this Medicham to get to that Ice Punch for the knockout, but the Altaria beats him to it with a Moonblast.
And trying to go for the attack drop here. This is probably the smarter play. You're not going to get the 2 Sky Attacks anyway, and you don't get that attack drop, and the Ice Punch is going through. The thing is, you don't have any super effective charge move damage to threaten this Galarian Stunfisk, but Galarian Stunfisk needs to survive to get to 2 Earthquakes.
Well, that Galarian Stunfisk is already at the first Earthquake, and it looks like Dunebug is going to be taking some time to charge halfway up to the second. First, though, Wadaj throwing the second Ice Punch. This is not going to threaten a knockout, but could allow him to counter it down after this charged move.
Cheeky play there by Dunebug to throw on charge move priority to deny a counter from that Medicham so that you take less counter damage, which is the most effective damage here. Wow, this is really close. You're almost at a rock slide here. You need to throw something, and the counter is going through. I don't think this is going to be enough, but there's health on the Altaria still.
There is health on the Altaria, and that Medicham needs 2 more turns to get to the Ice Punch. This is going to be so close. He throws the Ice Punch, but he just doesn't get it in time, as Dragon Breath will be so fast. It takes 1 single turn, a half a second, to throw a Dragon Breath, and that is enough for the knockout.
Oh my goodness, that is the strength of those 1-turn fast moves. The Medicham was caught in that counter, just didn't quite get it. Altaria was able to hang on from the Skarmory and just be healthy enough to chip away at that Medicham to take the matchup. That was terrible alignment for Dunebug, but he won anyway.
He won anyway, and that going into that game too, I wonder if he even will make any adjustments given how well those Pokemon worked out for him in that matchup. You know, we saw the Azumarill be there to help with that Medicham and really do some nice damage with the bubble into that Shadow Nidoqueen. We saw the Galarian Stunfisk just threaten a ton of damage, and the Altaria as well really coming in clutch at the end.
That was a struggle though. That was tough. He had the scrape and claw to that victory. Like you mentioned, a half second away from taking that Ice Punch. 1 turn away that Medicham was to winning the game, losing the lead, losing the counter swap, at least getting that shield pressure back, because you have the Ice Beam, and Shadow Nidoqueen doesn't really want to take that. That is the strength of the Azumarill. Azumarill is so bulky, has really good coverage, so at least even though you lose to those poison types, you get a Protect Shield back and was able to utilize that in the Altaria later.
All right, game number 2, another great lead for Wadaj with that Medicham already staring down the Galarian Stunfisk, and now both Pokemon swap out, counter swaps again. It's going to be that Nidoqueen versus the Azumarill.
You were right. If it worked last game, maybe just try it again. Even though you lose the lead, lose the counter swap, you are going to get the Protect Shield once again. But now Wadaj had time to think about that last game. Think about, what did I do wrong? I had such an advantage. How did I lose that? So I expect a change here as this Protect Shield goes up on the Ice Beam.
All right, there is going to be a change. It looks like, though, the poison jab down on the Azumarill is successful once again. The Shadow Nidoqueen going into this matchup with so much energy built up. Last time we saw the Galarian Stunfisk switch in, and that's exactly what we see again. This time around, that Shadow Nidoqueen immediately throwing the Earth Power.
Deja vu. It's playing out almost exactly like game number 1 here, as you do Protect Shield that Earth Power. And once again, this Nidoqueen is going to almost get to the next Earth Power, so you have to throw something before for it. But no, throwing the Poison Fang, this is the key difference. This is a little bit different than last time.
Yeah, this defensive drop and the shield as well from Dunebug will start to add up, especially when the Medicham comes in after Rockslide knocks out this Shadow Nidoqueen.
That will definitely help you out, getting a Protect Shield on that Poison Fang there. I believe that Wadaj was one Poison Jab short of the Earth Power, so maybe a little bit of an error by Dunebug, and then now there's no Protect Shield, and this Medicham could just get the 2 Ice Punches.
Now that there are no Protect Shields in play, this makes this matchup so much more comfortable for this Medicham, as Wadaj already was at a single Ice Punch and even swaps in the Skarmory here as well, who can better tank these Dragon Breaths, saving that critical Pokemon to knock out the Altaria and the Galarian Stunfisk after we see some damage come through.
Yeah, Skarmory takes the Sky Attack, no problem, and is going to fight back with one of his own. There it comes. The Sky Attack is probably poised to knock out this Altaria. It is very bulky, but it's low health at this point.
It is, and again, that is such a critical difference from this game one. The fact that Ice Punch was able to connect prior to Skarmory facing off against the Altaria is going to make all the difference here. Wadaj just has to save that shield, I think, for when the Medicham comes back into play. Do as much damage as you possibly can with this Skarmory. Maybe go for a couple of Sky Attacks, or depending on timing, try to squeak in a Brave Bird as well. Actually will go for the Brave Bird here, possibly not even going to try and switch out the Skarmory to drop the debuff and just let it go down.
Just trying to get it as low as possible before the switch timer comes out. That was charge move priority, so now this Galarian Stunfisk is forced to use its energy, so you see the undercharge to try to get some more energy back, but here comes the pivot into the Medicham, and at this point, counters plus Ice Punch is probably going to be enough.
There are 2 Rock Slides available to the Galarian Stunfisk on the other side of the field, but it looks like Dunebug just lets it go. The counter down will be successful, and Wadaj ties up this set 1-1 in losers round 2. Whoever wins this next game will be moving on in the tournament. Whoever loses will be knocked out of Top Cut.
Photo finish in game number 1 at the end there with the Altaria getting that Dragon Breath down, and then a really fast-paced situation where you throw the Poison Fang right before you have the Earth Power, and it's so hard. If you were off by just 1 count, you don't want to take that entire Earth Power, but that played out literally the exact same way as game number 1, and 1 or 2 turns before the Earth Power energy last time, Dunebug threw the Rock Slide. This time, Wadaj knew that that was going to happen, so threw the Poison Fang on charge move priority, and it picked up the shield. That was the key difference, the key adjustment by Wadaj in game number 2.
So then going into game number 3, I feel like it's finally time for these trainers to consider a Pokemon adjustment, as it was just so close in both of those games. Really could have gone either way. If Wadaj is confident that he can get enough energy to get that defense drop to stick on the Galarian Stunfisk, you know, maybe that is a strategy that you go for again. But I feel like for Dunebug to deny that for Wadaj, he needs to make some adjustment here. Maybe it's a playstyle adjustment, maybe it's a Pokemon adjustment, but you can't just go in with the same game plan 3 times in a row.
I completely agree. As a baseline, I think you don't want to lose lead and lose counter swap. So that's what happened in game number 1 and 2. So I think Dunebug is going to be trying to not do that in game number 3. Maybe he runs the same team thinking Wadaj will change teams. I'd be shocked at that. I think Dunebug wants some different situations, because we kind of saw the same thing game number 1, game number 2. I think Wadaj had the advantage throughout most of it, but just let it slip away game number 1. Game number 2, he adjusted, so I expect adjustments in this game number 3.
It looks like Dunebug is really taking a moment to consider the adjustments as well. Wadaj already locked in to his 3 Pokemon for this final game. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Wadaj, Hot Pocket, and Onion Frank, that little friend group, maybe went back and started to practice against each other, practice against these teams going into this Top Cut, as for him to lock in so confidently and so quickly just shows, I think, either confidence or preparation, or maybe a little bit of both. But let's get this game 3 started. It's the Medicham lead once again, but this time it's facing off against a Trevenant.
Look at that. Dunebug got a good lead here against this Medicham. The Trevenant is going to be coming with the Shadow Claw, safe swap Nidoqueen, and then a positive counter swap by Dunebug. The thing is, the Nidoqueen can threaten the Galarian Stunfisk, and like we saw last game, can go for the bait as well.
All right, well, it's going to be Earth Power, and Dunebug lets it go. This is not a Poison Fang just yet. We'll need a second Earth Power, most likely, to pick up the KO here, but Rock Slide, the move of choice for Dunebug. Will Wadaj let it connect? And no, he doesn't. He starts investing those shields.
Knowing that Dunebug might be behind in that situation, letting the Earth Power go, thinking my only win condition probably is now to bait on that Rock Slide, so went through it, trying to throw. Oh my goodness, he's going for another Rock Slide bait. Can he pick? He picks up 2 Protect Shields with Rock Slides here.
Wadaj is down his shields, and he shakes his head, knowing that that puts him at a significant disadvantage for the remainder of this game. Poison Fang is the next charged move. It will connect with that Galarian Stunfisk, but it drops its defensive. But it's not enough. That Stunfisk is able to throw an Earthquake finally to connect with that Shadow Nidoqueen for the KO.
And it takes both shields and the matchup. Galarian Stunfisk double bait, survives the triple resisted Poison Fang, throws the Earthquake. Dunebug is so far ahead. Gonna be matching up the Skarmory into Altaria. You mentioned before, this might be one of the key matchups of top 8.
It is, and it's really, again, the summary of the metagame we're seeing play out here in Baltimore. Sky Attack will connect with that Skarmory. Needs about 3 or 4 more of those maybe to pick up the KO, but the key thing here is that the Skarmory is switch locked on the field. It cannot leave the field, which means Wadaj most likely will rely on its own Sky Attacks and cannot go for the Brave Bird just yet to try and flip this matchup around.
I'm getting some awesome nostalgia seeing this matchup, just like we saw all the time when Pokemon Go PvP came out. I hope you're feeling the same way, but here comes the knockout with just a couple more Dragon Blast. It's risky to go for another Air Slash, but went through it anyway. And here comes the Altaria. Still has 2 Protect Shields. Can probably just reach that Moonblast. You see, that is what Dunebug is going for.
Wadaj trying to throw the Psychic, but it is too late as this Moonblast will connect with the Medicham. Doesn't quite pick up the knockout yet, but look at that amazing catch with that Trevenant to take that Psychic for the Altaria.
And taking 2 Protect Shields with him to go on in this tournament. Dunebug takes it 2-1.
What a incredibly close set between both Dunebug and Wadaj. I think he looks very relieved, as that matchup really could have gone either way for both of these trainers. But you know, we saw Altaria beat that Skarmory twice in this matchup, and
so we're gonna have to see what Onion Frank's able to pair those Pokemon with to be most effective. Like we said, a lot of his Pokemon are win hard, lose hard, so we'll see if he can get the alignment that he wants here. We're gonna be moving into game number 1.
And here we go. We have the Sirfetch'd leading off against that Alolan Ninetales. This duck is going to be flying away as fast as possible because those charms, look at them go. But actually, it seems like Silent Beast is content to stay in the matchup.
Well, this is a really tough scenario because you have 2 Pokemon weak to that Alolan Ninetales. Not only do you have the Sirfetch'd taking super effective damage, but you have the Altaria as well. So really have to stay in. We see the Ninetales recognizing, Onion Frank says, hey, this Ninetales must have a lot of play. There's probably something in the back weak to this Ninetales, opting to shield and preserve its HP. Very smart play. Really, this Ninetales, if we take a look at this, it's good versus all 3 Pokemon. Ice versus Grass. We have Ice and Fairy versus Dragon, and then we have the Fairy versus Fighter. If we just preserve this Ninetales, it's going to look great for Onion Frank, and that's exactly what he does.
And here we have the Altaria versus the Diggersby. The Diggersby can't really do anything with this Earthquake being resisted by this flying type Pokemon. So it's going to be relying on Fire Punches against Altaria, but those are resisted too, Altaria being a Dragon and flying type.
Yeah.
So Altaria has much more play here in this matchup.
Yeah, I think the Medicham is a bit of a safer swap into that Altaria, frankly. I just think that with access to Ice Punch, it's able to at least hit for that double super effective move, whereas everything here is going to be resisted. The Mud Shots, the Fire Punches, the Earthquakes. It is nice to get some of this chip, and still, as long as you are saving those shields for that Alolan Ninetales, I have to give the advantage to Onion Frank. So at this point, I still think things are looking good, but with this particular very negative matchup here, Silent Beast might have an opportunity to find a win con.
So here we have the Sky Attack hitting the Diggersby. It only needs one more Sky Attack, or Altaria could go for a much more aggressive fast move down of the Diggersby, just relying on that very heavy Dragon Breath damage, as these Fire Punches are not doing anything. And we see a very quick swap into the Alolan Ninetales, Altaria opting to go right for that Moonblast.
I'm a little surprised by this play here, knowing that, yeah, the Moonblast energy and now able to farm down. You've now got a Medicham, which is a fighter, and then a ground Pokemon lined up versus this Altaria. I think that this Alolan Ninetales was the path to victory, opting to let it go. Very surprising play for me.
Yeah, so here we have the Ice Punch coming from the Medicham is going to easily knock out Altaria, being double weak to that Ice typing. And here comes Trevenant, who is going to have the matchup against the Medicham. Shadow Ball is incredibly super effective against the Psychic and Fighting type Medicham and is going to knock it out with just one move.
Well, what's really interesting and what Silent Beast did so adeptly in this game was getting energy on this Trevenant. Trevenant with energy proves so dangerous. It hits super effective with the Shadow Balls versus the Medicham, super effective with the Seed Bombs versus the Diggersby, and able to pace to moves very quickly. Despite these fast moves doing absolutely nothing, Silent Beast, despite having this terrible lead, is going to be able to take game number 1. Onion Frank's really struggling to say, hey, what could I have done a little bit better? In my opinion, I think we should have seen that Medicham lined up versus the Altaria. It allowed a big reset for Silent Beast, which allowed him to win the end of the matchup despite hard losing the lead and then having a tough back matchup there as well.
Right, on paper, you look at the way these Pokemon, you look at these 3 Pokemon lined up against each other, it seemed like Onion Frank was definitely going to take this, especially having, I just thought this was going to be Onion Frank's game. The Alolan Ninetales, like you mentioned, key to victory, easily takes out the Altaria, easily takes out the Sirfetch'd, has a great matchup against Trevenant, but it just couldn't happen there for Onion Frank.
Yeah, well, the key to that was energy on Altaria. When you look at it's energy in general. It's not the HP. Your HP is going to get taken out so quickly by those charms from the Alolan Ninetales. But getting energy when you can get energy, which we saw with the Trevenant, and then we saw with the Altaria, getting so much extra farm, so much extra energy generation versus that Diggersby, it allowed Silent Beast to quickly take those shields from Onion Frank to get not that much effort, or not that much effect rather, out of his Alolan Ninetales. So very nice play, very nice being able to adapt on the fly.
Yes, so as these battlers are getting locked in and making their final selections, we'll have to decide. So from Onion Frank, I don't know if we're going to see that Diggersby come back, or we might see some other Pokemon from his team. For Onion Frank, does that Shadow Victory Bell have any play whatsoever? I'm very curious, because it's going to have a hard time against the Altaria. Might have a tough time against Trevenant. I don't see that Shadow Victory Bell, which something that Onion Frank's a little bit more known for, is going to be coming out here today.
Yeah, I think Onion Frank needs to bring the Altaria here, frankly. I think we need a better option for that Trevenant. Let's take a look. We've got a great matchup here for Onion Frank. It's the perfect lead that he wants. He has the Medicham lined up versus this Bastiodon. Immediate swap out in the Trevenant, and hey, we've got an answer. We have the Alolan Ninetales here. These charms are going to be adding up very quickly. He's going to need to invest some shields if you want to keep switch, but you've got 2 answers for that Bastiodon in the back. May not be quite as relevant in this scenario.
No, so here we have that Shadow Ball, and we are seeing an early shield on the side of Onion Frank, wanting to preserve the Alolan Ninetales, perhaps recognizing it was the key to victory in the last game and wanting to keep it around, and charms down the Trevenant before Trevenant can even throw a move. This sets up the Bastiodon against the Alolan Ninetales.
DeFi, what really just happened here is that Silent Beast pulled a very smart play. He's taking out that Alolan Ninetales, which is its biggest threat to the Altaria, able to farm this down no problem. In fact, doesn't even wait out the switch clock, wants to come in immediately so that Onion Frank cannot swap the Ninetales out and preserve it for later. That is going to free up this Altaria later on in the matchup versus a ground Pokemon and versus a fighting type Pokemon. We saw that Altaria flourish earlier, so we're going to see this flamethrower come out from Silent Beast's Bastiodon. It's going to do a little chip damage versus Medicham, but we're going to see this Altaria absolutely flourish here very soon.
Yes, I agree. Taking a quick peek into the future. So there's the Altaria on the side of Silent Beast. Has a really good matchup against Onion Frank's remaining Pokemon. We see an early shield here from the Ice Punch. Silent Beast recognizing that the Altaria is going to be doing really, really well against this Medicham and whatever is likely in the back.
This is going to be really tough. You need to get to 3 Ice Punches here if you're Onion Frank, and I don't know that there's a formula for that. I think that you're going to be able to get to 1 more, no problem. That's going to take the second Protect Shield, but are you going to be able to get to 2 more? That's going to be the question here. HP quickly dwindling, able to get to another one. I think we're 2 counters away. This is going to be close here. Silent Beast knows I have to protect my Altaria. This is the key to victory. Will we see Onion Frank able to reach the move? No, not before Silent Beast is able to get to the Sky Attack. Correctly throws. This is Medicham is gone. All you've got left is the Diggersby versus a nearly full health Altaria. This is looking great for Silent Beast.
Yes, it looks like we will not need to see the Bastiodon come out again. The Altaria has a commanding matchup of this battle, resisting everything this Diggersby is throwing at it, resisting the Earthquakes, resisting the Mud Shots, resisting the Fire Punch, where Altaria can just fire down that Dragon Breath from above, as well as Sky Attacks and Moonblast to really just give this Diggersby a hard time.
So Diggersby is going to be able to knock out that Bastiodon with 1 Earthquake should the Bastiodon come back into the matchup, but I honestly don't think that it's going to be able to get through this Altaria.
I don't either. I really think Bastiodon is going to be, it is sitting on the bench cheering for its partner Altaria and just waiting for these Sky Attacks and Dragon Breaths to knock out the Diggersby. There's the last Sky Attack and 1 more puff of breath, and the Altaria takes this match for a very clean victory on the part of Silent Beast. Silent Beast very well making 1 key adjustment, leaving Sirfetch'd on the bench, the lead from last match, and bringing in the Bastiodon to lead instead, keeping that Trev and Altaria core in the back. Where Frank didn't change any of his Pokemon, he just switched the lead. Instead of leading the Alolan Ninetales, led the Medicham instead, where perhaps Frank needed to make more of a Pokemon adjustment in order to take these matches.
D5 for me.
Into these battles, Wholesome.
All right, game number 1. This is the loser semis, guys. This is win or go home. We have a great matchup for Silent Beast, getting his Galarian Stunfisk lined up versus the Altaria of Doonbug. Doonbug, a quick swap out, bringing in the Trevenant. It's going to be met by the Flyer. Altaria, 1 Shadow Ball, still very devastating to this Altaria, but we're going to see this quick pacing Altaria almost get to a move, but no, not before the Shadow Ball from Doonbug.
Yes, and we will have to see Silent Beast doing a late shield here to protect the Altaria. We've been seeing Altaria do so well in these tournaments. It is often the key to victory. Altaria up there using the Sky Attack and forcing a shield on the side of Doonbug. So we're seeing our shields deployed early here in this matchup.
Smart recognition from Silent Beast, recognizing that HP is actually very important. Knowing that, hey, if that Altaria comes back in, having a nice pool of HP should be very effective in getting some super effective Dragon Breath damage. But in this case, actually lets this go. Tries to call a bait. Still able to get to this to the Sky Attack, but we're going to see Doonbug really wanting to get switch here. And this could be vital because we know that Doonbug is hiding that Obstagoon in the back, and this is going to create alignment issues for Silent Beast.
Yes, so here is so Silent Beast making that choice. What are we going to use to take out the last of this Trevenant, and chooses to bring in the Galarian Stunfisk. Doonbug opting to go right for that Shadow Ball, which is going to threaten quite a bit of the Galarian Stunfisk health, taking it down to half, and then making the switch into the Sirfetch'd, interestingly enough, met by Doonbug's Altaria.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by this play, but trying to do something a little aggressive here. This is exactly the problems that we were talking about that's going to run up against Silent Beast. So Silent Beast actually, oh my gosh, unable to get to the Brave Bird, going to be trying to throw just after the Sky Attack, shields up the Sky Attack from the Altaria of Doonbug, and able to get to this Brave Bird. This will drop the defense stage 3 stages for the Sirfetch'd, so it's not going to have a lot of play after this. Does not even take out the Altaria. It is able, however, to get to this Leaf Blade, despite this being double resisted. Should be enough to knock out. Sirfetch'd doesn't have too much more. Leaves it with 1 HP.
Did not knock out, leaves Altaria there, and Altaria is able to get to a move, even able to throw that Sky Attack. So the Galarian Stunfisk knockdown into the red does get a little bit of energy off of the Altaria, but I'm not sure it was worth it.
Yeah, at this point, you actually need to throw some energy here. This Trevenant had just enough HP to sneak out this Seed Bomb. We're not even going to see the Obstagoon come out here, which is really interesting for Dunebug, able to hide that in the back and not reveal any information. 2 versus 3, Dunebug able to pick up the win here. Yeah, for Silent Beast, you have to have a couple of regrets there, knowing that you had the proper alignment and could have had that Surf Edge lined up versus the Obstagoon. Instead, that no shield on the Shadow Ball from Dunebug's Trevenant on Silent Beast Altaria ended up spelling disaster for him.
So now we have to decide, what will Silent Beast do in order to make an adjustment here? There was definitely some play issues that Silent Beast could have made, maybe some different decisions in order to take victory in that matchup. So now does Silent Beast decide, I think these Pokemon were good, I just maybe made some errors? Or does Silent Beast decide to completely switch the lineup around? And what will Dunebug do to respond? Is it if it's not broke, don't fix it, keep that goon hidden in the back as a surprise? Or does Dunebug make any changes here?
If I'm Dunebug, I'm bringing this Obstagoon. He made the mistake in game number 2 earlier in the day of not bringing the Obstagoon when it would have proved very, very, very efficient and very effective. However, I think that he's going to be bringing it in all 3 games. For Silent Beast, I think that you need to make sure that you're bringing 2 answers to that Obstagoon, one of which is going to be that Surf Edge. It has a lot of versatility with having that Brave Bird, even in resisted scenarios, does tons of damage. The second answer most likely going to be that Altaria. I would not be shocked if we see that combo time and time again for the Altaria Surf Edge, but we may see the order get swapped up. The key for Silent Beast is going to be alignment, and then also which third Pokemon is going to make the most sense to have the best overall coverage versus the team of Dunebug. I do like that Galarian Stunfisk without a doubt. Does nicely versus Altaria, does nicely versus Shadow Nidoqueen, does okay rather versus the Trevenant and the Azumarill. So I think it has a lot of neutral play and could be that key third Pokemon to help Silent Beast take game number 2.
Right, and we have these battlers locking in, ready to go. We'll be going down to the battles in just a moment here, just making these final quick decisions. This is a pivotal matchup. Again, these are the losers finals. You lose here and you go home.
Right, trying to avoid that at all costs at this point. Got to pull out all the stops. If we remember, Dunebug did not bring Obstagoon in game number 2. We'll have to see if he does a similar strategy. I wonder if Silent Beast is thinking about that and saying, hey, Dunebug didn't bring the Obstagoon in game number 2. I'm expecting him to not bring it. Maybe I don't bring my Surf Edge at this point, but there are so many decisions, so many factors that are going through these battlers' minds that they're trying to go over time and time again to determine that best team of 3.
I agree. So again, taking a look at these teams, Silent Beast making that decision. Do I bring the Bastiodon? Do I bring the Surf Edge? Do I stick with more meta mainstays? But here we go. We have our battlers locked in and going onto the stage. We have a Bastiodon lead facing off against an Azumarill.
Well, this is a really interesting matchup because the Azumarill actually swaps out Dunebug, likely running Play Rough as well as Ice Beam, both resisted by Basti. It's going to create a fast swap here, bringing in the Trevenant, which pulls out the Sableye on the side of Silent Beast. Right now, Silent Beast getting all of the leads here, does not shield a Seed Bomb. What a call here, able to take that Seed Bomb, no problem, gets to a foul play. What a call.
Exactly, and I am surprised on the side of Silent Beast to see that Sableye. We were talking about it during that team preview, that Sableye only has a few positive matchups against Dunebug's team. Trevenant being one of those better matchups. We see a shield here to protect it from that Seed Bomb. The Shadow Claws on both sides doing a lot of damage, but the Sableye will be able to hang on here with energy and a low amount of health.
A huge call from Silent Beast, being able to simply just take that Seed Bomb rather than what could have been a Shadow Ball. Comes out of this matchup with energy and still with the alignment, able to throw the return here. Obstagoon comes out. Dunebug has now revealed his whole team. There is something that Obstagoon is not going to want to see, and it is the Surf Edge on the side of Silent Beast. We're going to see the Sableye counter down. Silent Beast ready to go with the bird. Brings it out immediately. This is going to force the switch. Might stay in and throw this Leaf Blade to help kind of tenderize this Azumarill a little bit.
Exactly, because although Azumarill is a water type, it's not packing any water type moves today to be able to apply really strong pressure against the Bastiodon. So here we have the Bastiodon, and it's going to be slowly chipping away here with those smackdown fast moves. Azumarill, opting for the resisted play rough to do not very effective damage against the Steel-type Bastiodon.
It's just so disappointing. If you're playing Pokemon Go for the first time and you're throwing your charge move expecting it to do a chunk, throwing a play rough, throwing an Ice Beam into a Bastiodon barely moves the HP whatsoever. Those bubbles seem to be doing more damage than the play rough, so this is not going to be doing much damage at all to the Bastiodon. With these bubbles, we'll tank it down into the yellow, but at this point, I think the Bastiodon wants to get as much energy as possible and even throw a move here to try and stall the switch clock so that you can get back into that matchup with that Surfetch'd lined up versus the Obstagoon.
Right, so here the Bastiodon has quite a bit of energy, waiting a little bit to throw. The Obstagoon also has quite a bit of energy as well, but it's going to have a tough time up against Surfetch'd because Surfetch'd is going to be doing those super effective counters, double super effective counters up against the Obstagoon. We see the Obstagoon is able to throw first. Here goes right for a Night Slash. Night Slash, remember, has that opportunity to give a boost, even though it's not very effective, does quite a bit of Surfetch'd health.
I'm surprised how much damage that Night Slash did. Had that been a cross chop, it may have been even more, but no, we see the Night Slash resisted come through, able to survive, able to counter down the Obstagoon, and Silent Beast ties up the series on the back of some great alignment, 1-1.
Yes, that brings us to a decisive Game 3.
Yeah.
We love decisive Game 3s here in these Pokemon Go regional championships.
You'll have to see it, yeah. So despite the rock Pokemon Bastiodon getting lined up versus the water Pokemon Azumarill, without that Hydro Pump, not able to really chip into that Bastiodon whatsoever. So Silent Beast really was able to predict the opponent's matchup, Dunebug's team, and able to get the proper alignment. What's most key, the Bastiodon versus Azumarill, that was fine, but being able to call that Seed Bomb with his Sableye versus the Trevenant, that was the key to victory. We saw actually Dunebug making the plays, throwing those rock slides versus Wadage's Nidoqueen earlier, trying to kind of outsmart his opponent. Silent Beast this time was the one who made that play himself with a huge no-shield. It's interesting to see, though, Dunebug has been baiting time and time again. We saw the rock slides earlier, like I mentioned. Silent Beast maybe picked up on that information and said, hey, I'm expecting the bait move, not the hard-hitting Shadow Ball, but the bait Seed Bomb instead, and was able to no-shield that, which I think was the key to victory in Game 2.
Right, and Silent Beast also made a huge team line adjustment, leaving the Altaria and Galarian Stunfisk on the bench. We will have to see the adjustments here as we go down to the stage. Battlers locked in, ready to go. We have Galarian Stunfisk up against Trevenant.
Okay, well, this is going to be a pretty neutral matchup, but there's something I'm seeing in the back on the side of Silent Beast that is going to feast on this back line. All right, well, we're going to see this matchup play out. Dunebug not messing around, saying I'm done baiting, going straight for the hard-hitting Shadow Ball. This is going to do a big chunk to this Galarian Stunfisk. Able to tank it no problem, and going to have to try and hit back with these rock slides. These are neutral. They are non-stab, non-same type attack bonus. 2 of these rock slides going to be almost enough to take out this Trevenant, and we see the first shield come out from Dunebug.
There we have the Trevenant continuing to Shadow Claw down on the Galarian Stunfisk, and we see a Met Stunfisk matchup. These two are going to be staring each other down. They threaten each other with that Earthquake. We see Dunebug letting the Earthquake come through, super effective, and here comes Surfetch'd being able to build up a little bit of energy. Silent Beast revealing the Surfetch'd here.
Well, Dunebug knows that there's a Surfetch'd hanging out in the back, and he knows that he has 2 Pokemon weak to it, so it's a smart play to bring in the Galarian Stunfisk just to bait out this Surfetch'd. It's a little bit interesting, though, that you did not see the shield whatsoever. That was really just a sacrifice on that Galarian Stunfisk, able to bring out this Surfetch'd. Now the Surfetch'd no longer poses a threat to this Obstagoon. We'll have to see if Silent Beast wants to hold on to it, and yes, he does.
Yes, Surfetch'd does not have that Night Slash today that will do super effective damage, but does have access to the Brave Bird. Dunebug knows this and shields the Brave Bird up.
That's a huge shield.
That is a massive shield call to be able to protect the Trevenant, and the Surfetch'd goes back to its Pokeball.
Yeah, this Trevenant's still relatively healthy. It has a full Shadow Ball worth of energy, and neither the Altaria nor the Galarian Stunfisk is going to want to take a Shadow Ball. So we see the first move come out. This is going to be the Shadow Ball once again. This is another huge call from Silent Beast. See what he wants to do, and no, lets the Shadow Ball go through. That's going to be a lot of damage. Immediately brings in the Obstagoon. You really need to race to that Moonblast. It's going to be the super effective move. No shields left for Dunebug. Has to get to this Night Slash and try and get rid of this Altaria.
But the Night Slash is not going to be enough. The Night Slash will only take it down into the red. So fighting and trying to get to that Moonblast even gets a little bit of extra energy, recognizing that the Obstagoon was nowhere near its next charge move. So banking a little bit of energy, allowing your health to go down, and the Obstagoon is off the field. Here comes Trevenant,
Oh my
and
gosh,
it
is
will
it gonna
be
make
a
it?
race.
No, unfortunately for Silent Beast, unable to get to the move. At this point, this Trevenant's going to be able to just Shadow Claw down. Dunebug raises his fists in triumph and is able to take the 2-1 victory versus Silent Beast. Those shields, you got to use them. Got to protect your Pokemon. Unfortunately, not enough HP. We see Silent Beast go down. Congratulations to Dunebug on the 2-1 victory.
Yes, and I will definitely say that that Trevenant Obstagoon core was...
For Elam's Trevenant, might get left on the bench here, knowing there's not too many targets. But let's go ahead and take a look. We're moving into game number 1 of the winners finals, guys. A lot of hype here. We have a very tough matchup for Elam right away, getting locked in versus this Galarian Stunfisk. We're going to see an immediate swap out, bringing in his own Galarian Stunfisk. This is really interesting because there is no answer in the back for House Stark. Going to need to keep his own Galarian Stunfisk in. This is going to be a battle of the minds. Let's see if Elam wants to shield and potentially try and call a bait here. We see a big shield come out, able to block that Earthquake.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Battle of the minds with Galarian Stunfisk. We will see who has nerves of steel in this matchup. We see the shield coming in on the side of House Stark, correctly calling the Earthquake. Oftentimes, this will come down to who can throw the bait. This looked like it might have been a CMP event. They might have thrown at the exact same time. We'll have to see in a moment. But there's the Earthquake. No shield from Elam.
Okay, Elam able to hang on with his Galarian Stunfisk, though. He's going to go ahead and get an Earthquake as well. You got to feel pretty good if you're House Stark that you've now taken out this Galarian Stunfisk, knowing that your backline is so weak to it. We're actually going to see a simultaneous knockout, so this is really interesting. The matchups here are going to be pretty one-sided. The challenge that we're going to run into potentially is if this Alolan Ninetales gets lined up versus this. Okay, no! This is going to be really, really tough for Elam in the back, knowing there's an Altaria versus an Alolan Ninetales. But this is not a terrible matchup. Swampert's going to be launching these Hydro Cannons into this Noctowl.
Yeah, so here's that first Hydro Cannon coming through. Swampert having to rely on that starter exclusive Hydro Cannon move because Earthquake and Mudshot not going to do anything against the Bird of the Sky. Here we have Noctowl, the normal flying type. Noctowl launching its own Sky Attack, doing quite a bit of damage. But look at that Swampert. It has two, not just one, but two Hydro Cannons, Wholesome, where the Noctowl just has the one Sky Attack ready.
Going to be able to hang on, this Noctowl is, and I got to give the advantage to House Stark right now. The key advantage that House Stark is that he actually knows the full squad for Elam at this point. He saw the Altaria in the lead. He knows that it's hanging out in the back, whereas Elam doesn't know that that Ninetales is in the back. And you can see him. He shakes his head. You can see them both laughing. The little chuckle from both of them. They know how one-sided this matchup is. The super effective charms, the double super effective Weather Ball here. Elam, knowing his fate, is going to let this one go. We're going to see game number 1 going to House Stark. Very nice play from House Stark, able to recognize that he needs to stay in that lead matchup, takes a very close tie, and then cleans up with the Alolan Ninetales.
Yes, I agree that lead matchup for House Stark was key, knowing a lot of times it's very easy for battlers, like you mentioned earlier, with the battle with Hot Pocket. Oh, my opponent switches, I need to switch too.
They swap, I swap.
They swap, I swap. So having House Stark knowing and recognizing, no, I can't swap here. I need to stay in with the Galarian Stunfisk was key to victory. And the simultaneous KOs, that definitely keeps us on the edge of our seat. We watch the timer count down as battlers wait until the last possible moment in order to put out their Pokemon and reveal what they are going to use.
Yeah, these top 8 battlers, no doubt about it, you can see them making some great plays. And in fact, you may not even see it at home, but Elam made a great play there in that early matchup. Able to come in and use the first shield correctly on the Earthquake, probably the most likely Earthquake, but knowing that the win condition most likely is no shielding a Rock Slide. House Stark, however, did throw the Earthquake, but Elam knows that he's behind in energy, and if he's going to be able to try and get ahead in this matchup and get the alignment that he wants, he needs to do something special, maybe call a Rock Slide. At the end of the day, the alignment didn't work out for him. He had the Noctowl lined up versus the Swampert. Would really have liked to have had that Swampert lined up versus the Alolan Ninetales, and the Altaria instead lined up versus the Noctowl, but not able to do that, unfortunately. Gonna have to figure out game number 2. Maybe there's some different Pokemon on his squad that are gonna have better matchups. I think the Noctowl on Hal Stark's team is gonna look really nice. Does well versus the Trevenant, does nice versus the Medicham as well, able to tank 2 Hydro Cannons, no problem from the Swampert, and then versus the Lickitung, double resists the Licks as well. So this Noctowl seems like a no-brainer for Hal Stark, and I think we're going to see it in game 2.
Right, so Elam definitely will definitely have that on his mind, trying to decide how to counter that Noctowl, being a really powerful pick for House Stark. And here we have the Trevenant on the Lickitung, a very dominant matchup for the Lickitung, being able to really apply that fast move pressure. House Stark bringing in the Noctowl as a safe swap, and here is the Galarian Stunfisk. It's not completely over for Noctowl. It can throw Shadow Balls on and really threaten the Galarian Stunfisk, but this is definitely more of Stunfisk's matchup.
You know, this matchup is actually way more close than you would think. It's not comfortable at all for Elam. You need to land 3 Rock Slides in order to take out this Noctowl, and he knows that. He knows that 1 shield is going to go a long way, and in fact, that matchup, the Trevenant versus the Galarian Stunfisk, isn't so bad either. So HP and correctly shielding a Shadow Ball is going to guarantee that he's able to keep that switch and keep that Swampert not on the Trevenant. That's the one thing he has to avoid. Swampert versus Trevenant, there's no play there whatsoever, but even 1 shield, it's really worth it here in this particular scenario. So Hal Stark gonna probably go ahead and get this last Shadow Ball off, let his Noctowl go down, and try to see it that 2 shielded Ninetales will be enough to take the victory.
We will have to see, because here comes that last Rock Slide, and we see the Noctowl is going to faint and go back to its Pokeball after this Rock Slide. Then we see the Trevenant come back out. It has access to that Seed Bomb and Shadow Ball and has 2 shields left. So House Stark in a very good position in terms of shield advantage, knowing that he does not have to shield this Rock Slide, won't even take the Trevenant down to half health. Trevenant resisting the Mud Shot, so Galarian Stunfisk has to rely on these Rock Slides coming through very quickly, taking Trevenant down to the red.
Yeah, like I mentioned, Hal Stark recognizing the win condition at this point is going to be a 2-shielded Alolan Ninetales, trying to charm through the opponent's backline. Elam, however, has got a very bulky Pokemon in that Lickitung. It's going to be able to pace the moves faster than this Alolan Ninetales, which is going to give it some good advantages. But Hal Stark, 2 Protect Shields still remain.
So here we have that Body Slam coming through. So the Alolan Ninetales not quite finding its target here. And here comes Swampert. Look at those charms completely decimating Swampert's health. It is going to have to watch out. We see Swampert deploying a Protect Shield in order to guard its health, being much more threatened by the charms than just a singular Weather Ball would be able to do.
So we haven't really seen much of the Swampert just yet. We've seen the Hydros. We haven't seen the second move, but we actually have a shield coming out. At this point, everything's on Alolan Ninetales. You really have to protect it. At this point, though, it's getting very close to a single move knocking out. And in fact, we see Elam throw the Hydro. I don't know that this is going to be quite enough to knock out, but at the same time, this Trevenant is not quite able to get back into the matchup here. So Elam, with not throwing the Earthquake, instead throwing the Hydro, have the energy for the Earthquake to knock out.
Interesting. So then this gives the Ninetales an opportunity to throw the Weather Ball, clear the Swampert away, and here we have almost a full health Lickitung on the side of Elam. So this Trevenant just cannot have the energy. I think House Stark, knowing that the Seed Bomb wasn't going to be enough, and concedes the match. This takes us with Elam. Not quite a decisive Game 3 yet, because remember, this is a best of 5.
Yeah, it's very important for Elam to come back there and even the series 1-1. It helps a lot. He now has the momentum, able to say, hey, I can figure this out. I can find the right Pokemon that help me to victory. I think the Lickitung was a great pick. I like how well it does versus that Trevenant, which is such an MVP for House Stark, and it has a lot of neutral play versus things like the Alolan Ninetales as well. Now that said, does not want to get lined up versus the Noctowl, but it was able to avoid that matchup for the most part. Like I mentioned, that Noctowl versus Galarian Stunfisk matchup is a bit tricky, especially at the end, because if you're both low HP, both in the red, the wing attacks are only single resisted on the Galarian Stunfisk, whereas the Mud Shots are double resisted. You can dictate that matchup with low HP as the Noctowl to farm down that Galarian Stunfisk and force switch, which would have resulted in the Trevenant versus the Swampert, but rather Elam knows that, shields a Shadow Ball early on, able to get all the alignment that he wants and take game number 2.
So we saw in these last 2 battles how Stark bringing the Noctowl, bringing the Alolan Ninetales each time, really just switching up the lead matchup. First match leading the Galarian Stunfisk, second match leading the Trevenant, hiding the Noctowl and Alolan Ninetales in the back. Will Stark continue to use that strategy of that core of Pokemon, or continue to switch things up like we saw Elam do, only keeping the Galarian Stunfisk and switching out the other 2 Pokemon?
Yeah, I like the Swampert for Elam. I think it's got neutral matchups in so many scenarios versus Alolan Ninetales, versus Obstagoon, versus the Noctowl. Great matchup versus the Galarian Stunfisk, and an obviously neutral matchup versus the Mirror. Just needs to avoid that Trevenant, so I would not shock to see that Swampert in this game 3 as well. And I think that these battlers are locked in. We're going to be moving into game number 3 right now. Let's go ahead and take a look here. We have the Swampert into the Galarian Stunfisk. No surprise here whatsoever. A great lead for Elam this time.
It is, and here comes the Noctowl, and ready to counter it is the Galarian Stunfisk again. Wholesome, I'm experiencing a little bit of deja vu.
Yeah, this is interesting here because once again, we're seeing this matchup play out. Like I mentioned, it can be a little bit tricky, but this one's going to be determined by what Elam wants to do here. I would not be shocked to see once again going for that shield right away, knowing that he can go ahead and solidify that matchup, get that shield early and often. But let's see, might be taking a little bit of a different strategy. No, wants to go with the safe route here, shields the Shadow Ball, and this should lead to a pretty easy being able to keep alignment that he wants.
Yes, alignment is so often key in these matchups. Noctowl being knocked down to the red. 2 Rock Slides, not enough to take it out of the game. It's already back up to a Shadow Ball, which will be allowed to go through to the Galarian Stunfisk. No Protect Shield here because Galarian Stunfisk can definitely handle it, only taking it down to about half health. The Stunfisk getting as much energy as possible before throwing this first Rock Slide, having a Rock Slide in the bank to be able to threaten the next Pokemon coming back.
The challenge for this Trevenant on Hal Stark's team is that Trevenant normally is so great for multiple reasons. Shadow Claw as well as Shadow Ball. Has great neutral matchup with its ghost typing in many scenarios except versus normal. Seed Bomb, not that great a move, and it's really going to struggle. Even with energy, has so many challenges versus that Lickitung. So Elam, if he's able to keep this alignment, it's going to translate very well. And here we have Hal Stark reaching for this Earthquake here. Rock Slide not enough to knock out. This is going to have no problem knocking out this Galarian Stunfisk on the side of Elam, but now we're going to see a quick swap from Hal Stark. This is going to bring out the Lickitung, and this is a very straightforward matchup. You can see Hal Stark raising his eyes, shaking his head. He's frustrated. He knows that he did not get the alignment that he wants. He's going to have to figure out a way to change that switch with the Noctowl versus the Galarian Stunfisk. Perhaps in the next game, he's going to have a chance.
Yes, because again, this is not the end of the winners finals. This is a best of 5, and there's still a battle playing out on our screen as well. We have the Seed Bomb going through to the Lickitung. The Lickitung is clearly the winner of this matchup, just being able to lick down using those super effective fast moves up against the Trevenant. Going for the Power Whip here, which is going to come very close to knocking out the Trevenant. Trevenant will throw a Seed Bomb in return, but it is not going to be enough for the KO.
Yeah, you need this energy to go somewhere as Trevenant. It goes a lot of places versus a lot of Pokemon, including things like Altaria, which is still a tough matchup. Not versus Lickitung, though. This Lickitung getting incredible value. Very one-sided matchup. Going to be able to get off this Power Whip here, and still has the Swampert for the Galarian Stunfisk. Hal Stark going to have to pull out a miracle to try and take this game number 3.
Exactly. Both players have a shield on either side, but the problem for Galarian Stunfisk is an Earthquake. Its heavy hitting move is not enough to knock out the Swampert. We do see a successful bait, taking the shield away from taking that last shield away from the Swampert. We see a shield deployed here. Galarian Stunfisk is in range where a Hydro Cannon can knock it out, and here is that second Hydro Cannon. Hal Stark getting very close to that Earthquake, but even if that Earthquake had registered, it would not have been enough.
You can see these battlers talking to each other. We don't know exactly what they're saying, but I imagine Hal Stark saying there's nothing I can do, and there's really not. That alignment really dictated the matchup there. Elam making a lot of smart, safe plays in order to dictate that alignment. Smart team composition is currently in the lead, 2-1.
Yes, we've been seeing again a wide variety of Pokemon from Elam, but it looks like Elam brought the same line of 3 as game 2, but just switched up the lead, brought the Swampert instead in the lead instead of the Lickitung, hid the Lickitung more in the back where it was able to do a lot of really good work for Elam. The main consistency over on the side of House Stark, we have seen that Noctowl every single game, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, Wholesome. That Noctowl just looks too good to leave behind, but Stark needs to find a way to avoid that Noctowl G-Fisk matchup.
Yeah, the Galarian Stunfisk is going to be the answer to the Noctowl. I don't think the answer is to sit the Noctowl. It could be something to shake up this game, as House Stark is one loss away from moving down to the losers bracket and face off versus Dunebug. Elam one victory away, but really these key matchups have been Lickitung versus Trevenant and Galarian Stunfisk versus Noctowl. These battlers are getting locked in. We're going to be seeing game number 4 coming at you here very soon. Let's go ahead and move into this matchup. Game number 4, we have Elam with the Altaria, not the Galarian Stunfisk this time, lined up versus the Noctowl. 2 tough matchups in the back. I think he's got to still feel pretty happy about this alignment.
Yes, I'm thinking House Stark is thrilled to not have the Noctowl lined up against the Galarian Stunfisk. Galarian Stunfisk not even in play on Elam's side of the field. We have the Noctowl going straight for the Shadow Ball to try to get some big damage up against the Altaria, bringing it down to about half health. Noctowl is an incredibly bulky Pokemon, even though Dragon Breath, an oppressive fast move, does a lot of damage, is not quite getting the Noctowl under half health, needs a Sky Attack in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can see House Stark, you might be thinking, okay, why are we not going for a Sky Attack early on? It has the same type attack bonus. You actually can't knock out with 2 Sky Attacks. You need to land a Shadow Ball, which he did early, which now forces the shield from Elam. Might be able to farm all the way down to the ground. Yes, this flyer has now been grounded back to the Pokeball. It's going to bring in the Galarian Stunfisk.
So House Stark bringing the Galarian Stunfisk of his own, perhaps giving Elam a taste of his own medicine, having the his Galarian Stunfisk up against Elam's Flyer. Galarian Stunfisk has a very dominant matchup here, but Altaria is going to be able to do quite a bit of damage to the Galarian Stunfisk, so don't count it out yet. It should be able to get the Galarian Stunfisk down to about half health here.
Yeah, a shield advantage Obstagoon is looking very strong for House Stark, though. When we take a look at what's in the back for Elam, still has the Lickitung, which is going to do very poorly versus the Obstagoon, has some play versus the Galarian Stunfisk. Elam going to have to get a lot of value out of this Swampert without a doubt. We see a quick swap into the Obstagoon. This is actually the matchup that Elam's wanting. He's knowing that he has to stay in this matchup, and down a shield, this is going to prove really hard. He can see already that he looks a little frustrated, knowing that he loses this matchup. We're going to see the first Night Slash come out. No boost for the Obstagoon this time.
Perhaps we will see a boosted Goon later in the matchup. We see perhaps House Stark recognizing that this Obstagoon is going to be powerful against Elam's back line. So we see the Obstagoon going for the charge move, but Swampert, being a very attack-weighted Pokemon, is able to get to the Hydro Cannon first. We see House Stark investing in this Obstagoon, putting both shields on the line, and Elam throws his last Protect shield in turn. We now have no shields left in this battle, Wholesome.
All right, at this point, oh, and we see the boost. Will he be able to farm all the way down? No, not before we see the Hydro Cannon come out. This is going to do some nice damage, but this is not going to be enough to knock out. This Obstagoon is going to be absolutely loaded with energy, and it's going to be facing off versus the Lickitung with the triple resisted licks. This is a double boosted Obstagoon. It's going to be able to get these cross chops off very soon. This Lickitung needs to try and race to a body slam, but I don't know if it's going to be able to get there.
No, the Obstagoon had a little bit of health going in, and there it is, another cross chop. This Obstagoon already had a dominant matchup here, but the boost, the attack boost, definitely made this a much quicker victory on the part of House Stark. This brings us 2-2, Wholesome. We don't have a decisive game 3. We have a decisive game 5.
You love to see it. I love some of those plays from House Stark. Throwing that Shadow Ball early on with a Noctowl rather than the Sky Attack forced a shield on the Sky Attack later on the side of Elam with his Altaria, and then having that Obstagoon in the back with 2 shields proved to be too strong versus the Lickitung versus the Swampert, especially with that boost, really was the nail in the coffin for Elam there in game number 4. Gonna have to rethink, okay, how do I make this matchup work for me in game number 5? Well, Altaria versus Noctowl is not so bad. You have to have that Galarian Stunfisk lined up versus it. I'm surprised that Elam didn't bring it in game number 4 there. A little surprising for sure, but guys, this is it. This is game number 5. If you lock this in, you will guarantee top 2, guarantee an invite to Worlds. There is a lot on the line for these 2 battlers here. They're still going to have to go to the grand finals and face off versus the winner of the losers finals, but this is the guarantee that you'll be moving on to Worlds in Japan.
Yes, so these 2 battlers, again, these battlers are teammates, they are friends, but this makes them the best of rivals. They know each other well, they've played each other before, they've scrimmed against each other. It is so easy for these battlers to be in each other's heads. So it is going to be so tough to lock in this final matchup. These battlers studying their lines, the teams that they brought, what they think their opponent is going to bring.
I would not be surprised to see House Stark bring the Alolan Ninetales once again. I think that it's a Pokemon that served him well earlier on that we haven't seen. It could be the wild card that he needs in order to take the matchup here in game number 5. On the other hand, Elam might be trying to do the same thing. There's some Pokemon that we haven't seen really come into the matchup here. We have seen a lot of Swampert, a decent amount of Lickitung, a lot of the Galarian Stunfisk. We could see either the Medicham, maybe the Trevenant come out in this matchup here to see how things could change.
Right, the Medicham has not come out at all on the side of Elam, so that might be a key if Elam thinks that House Stark is going to bring that Obstagoon again. Medicham having a dominant matchup against the Obstagoon, but we'll have to see. Again, it's the chess match that is happening behind the scene, the wordless silent chess match of playing in each other's heads, but here we go.
Here we go. I need your help. Let's get some hype in the chat, hype in the crowd, guys. This is it. This is the winners finals. We need to win this one, or you go down to the losers finals. This is it, game number 5. We have the Swampert into the Alolan Ninetales here. This is a relatively neutral matchup. Swampert going to be pacing the energy a lot faster, but we can see its health getting chunked quite fast. I think we may have had a CMP tie here. It's very close. We're actually going to see the Swampert get this Hydro Cannon through. Had that been an Earthquake, that would have been devastating, but a huge shield call from House Stark.
Yes, and here we see the first Weather Ball coming through. Elam deciding to shield his Swampert, wanting to keep the Swampert alive, and we see a switch into the Obstagoon on the part of House Stark, which allows Elam to bring in the Altaria. We go for the Night Slash. Will we see another attack boost?
Yeah, that would be absolutely critical here for House Stark, but Lightning did not strike twice in this particular scenario. I think Elam's got to feel pretty happy to have the Altaria lined up versus this Obstagoon not lined up versus something like a Galarian Stunfisk. Interesting to see House Stark not bringing the Noctowl in this game number 5, knowing that it's been so key to his victories in some cases. But at this point, we can see the Altaria racing for that Moonblast, throws just before the Night Slash. Incredible timing from Elam. If this Obstagoon wants to stick around, it's going to have to use a shield here. And no, the Moonblast lands. That's going to be enough to knock out the Obstagoon.
Yes, and that allows the Alolan Ninetales to come in. It might be able to charm and fast move down, but not quite.
It gets to the Sky Attack. That's going to be enough to knock out.
It will be enough to knock out the Alolan Ninetales, leaving House Stark with just one Pokemon remaining, a Swampert, but the Swampert does have 2 shields. A 2-shielded Swampert could turn it around. We see the first shield deployed here in this Swampert mirror match.
The shield advantage looks great for House Stark, but don't forget that Elam has all of this energy on his own Swampert. One Hydro Cannon is absolutely devastating, and House Stark doesn't know what's in the back for Elam whatsoever. This is actually a huge no shield. What this is going to do is try to set up the farm down here. Elam desperately trying to get to this last Hydro, and yes, he does. House Stark going to have to use the last shield. Elam is going to have to try and secure the victory with his Galarian Stunfisk. Is a rock slide enough? I think it just may be.
We see House Stark grimacing on the stage, knowing that this is going to be really tough for him.
Oh my gosh, D5.
Oh my goodness, we see
House Stark going straight for the Earthquake, and this is going to be enough to knock out. He punches his ticket into the top 2. House Stark landing the Earthquake with his Shadow Swampert and wins the series 3-2.
Oh my goodness, I was ready to call that for Elam. House Stark looked like he was Looked like it was really tough for him, but we see how Stark...
He can't believe it.
He can't believe it himself, what has just happened. But these two teammates, I'm sure, talking to each other, very good friends, very good team.
A bit of a slower entry, I think, into this matchup. Both these trainers certainly had time to look at the bracket and figure out who they could be facing on their way to grand finals and on their way to possibly being the champion here in Baltimore. And I think that given you have those extra couple of matches, given that you have that time, you can take it a bit slower. You don't necessarily have to try and make those hard reads initially to give yourself the advantage. But here we are, losers finals, game 1, Lickitung versus the Galarian Stunfisk on Doomsbug's side of the field.
And this is somewhat neutral just because you can do the neutral lick and neutral power whip, but it's not same type attack bonus. So Galarian Stunfisk has a slight advantage here. And as you see, once again, alignment in the back is going to matter a bit unless one of these trainers goes for the pivot. No, Elam goes for the early protect shield on the Lickitung.
But Doomsbug also goes for an early earthquake, so just investing all of that energy immediately trying to get a big hit down on that Lickitung. Does not get it. Power Whip will also be shielded in return.
Yes, it is protect shielded, so both of these trainers are investing in their Pokemon to try to get the alignment here. Maybe you try to bait out something with the Medicham, maybe you try to pivot, because if you just lose this alignment, you're going to be in a tough spot on the back line as this Earthquake gets no protect shielded by the Lickitung.
Doomsbug really taking an aggressive start to this game, not even trying to feint a Rock Slide, just going straight for the Earthquakes and that big damage. Lickitung, though, still relatively healthy, will be able to connect a Power Whip with the Galarian Stunfisk, but it only barely ties up the score health-wise.
Yes, but since that Power Whip went through, maybe this gives a chance for the Lickitung to flip the advantage here. If you shield this Earthquake, which does get protect shielded, maybe you can go for double Body Slam, because Body Slam plus Licks might be enough.
Well, Body Slam, it's so close, but unfortunately, Doomsbug is able to reach that Rock Slide in time. Now, it will not be doing as much damage as that Earthquake, and Lickitung is able to hold on as a result. But Azumarill coming in to try and take that first Body Slam. Ilium waiting a couple of seconds before throwing and is able to throw the Power Whip. Doomsbug is going to let it connect.
And the patience pays off there as the super effective Power Whip lands, and you need to throw this Body Slam. Really perfect timing on the last turn available there by Elam to get off that Body Slam. So Azumarill did not effectively soak up that damage, took some big hits.
This is a bit of an unfortunate matchup now for Ilium, though, as the Medicham is really the preferred Pokemon to play against the Azumarill. The other remaining Pokemon for him is that Altaria, which will be firing off resisted fast moves. And if you can get a Psychic to land here, then you are able to pick up this KO, but Doomsbug still has that remaining shield. If he thinks it's an Ice Punch, he probably won't go for it, but he saves it for later.
And it does connect, knocking out the Azumarill. Looks like Elam's going for an instant pivot here. This Medicham could be crucial in the back to either try to swap on a move or get to a knockout Ice Punch on that Trevenant, because the Trevenant is up a Protect Shield and now up a Shadow Claw as well.
The Altaria will take a few turns to get to the Sky Attack, but Trevenant could throw a Shadow Ball here for some big damage, but the Altaria beats it to it, finally drawing out that final shield from Doomsbug in this game 1.
Does Doomsbug have time to get to double Shadow Ball? Will he have to go for a Seed Bomb bait? No, just going for the Shadow Ball. There's no Protect Shields left anyway. You have to get to 2 moves here, so the Shadow Ball is going to land. Will the Seed Bomb plus Shadow Ball be enough?
He was already almost at the Seed Bomb. He's there now, but he's going for the Shadow Ball, and he's able to clear it just in time. Altaria 1 turn away from getting to that Sky Attack, instead just going to be knocked out, and now it's all down to this Medicham. Going to be taking super effective damage from these Shadow Claws, and just barely has enough time to get to the Ice Punch, but they throw on Charge Move priority, and the Trevenant gets it.
That Medicham was too energy dry, so Trevenant gets to that Seed Bomb first, knocks out the Medicham. It takes game number 1 for Doomsbug.
A very close matchup when playing out, but Elam just did not find the alignment he needed, and I think really didn't bring the Pokemon suited for that matchup. The Lickitung was a great lead for him, but the Trevenant in the back and the Altaria, or in the Medicham as well, just really struggled to find that damage, unfortunately.
I think now in this meta, Trevenant is probably my favorite closer up a Protect Shield. Before, in the Open Great League meta, Shadow Swampert was insane because even in its negative matchups, it could double Hydro Cannon through a Trevenant. That's not the case anymore because Altaria is everywhere. So you need a Pokemon that can knock out the Altaria with a Protect Shield advantage. That is the Trevenant. The Trevenant just gets to those double Shadow Balls, finishes off the Altaria, finishes out the match, even while losing the early alignment, pivoting, and taking all that damage on the Azumarill.
So then talking about adjustments, again, like we mentioned, the Azumarill was so key in Doombugg's approach in this game 1. Going into game 2, I think Ilum had the opportunity to get the alignment with the Lickitung and that Power Whip that he wanted, but it just wasn't enough damage to even up the score. I feel like you just have to change your strategy entirely, knowing that that's not going to be enough to help.
Yeah, and it seems like Elam is trying to go for alignment just because even if he ran something like Trevenant in the back to try to close the game, Doombug is running 2 normal types and 1 dark normal type. So Trevenant up energy, up Protect Shields is not going to be able to finish off a Lickitung or an Obstagoon. So it puts Elam in a tricky situation where he probably needs to rely more on alignment than Doombug does. Doombug has more flexibility, not just with the Azu team composition, but with his Trevenant in the back up Protect Shields.
Both trainers have locked into their Pokemon for game 2. It's going to be a Trevenant lead from Ilum versus the Obstagoon from Doombug.
Yes, and the Trevenant was trying to get some good matchups here, just like Doombugs did in the last game, but this is literally the worst case scenario. And this is a team we've seen often from Doombug as the Seed Bomb is going to connect. We see the Obstagoon in front and 2 Medicham answers in the back.
That is such a rough go for Ilum, but did leave the Medicham behind in this matchup, so maybe he can find a way through this. For now, just letting this Night Slash go. It's super effective. We'll need 1 more Night Slash to pick up that knockout. So if Trevenant is lucky, it should get to the Seed Bomb in time. We'll have the opportunity to throw it here. Doombug, I don't think he needs to invest a shield to take it.
No, and the Seed Bomb does land, but look at this backline. It's very neutral, so alignment doesn't matter here. If you soft lose this matchup, it's not the end of the world because you could get some energy advantage, gain some momentum to finish up the backline as Trevenant just lets this Night Slash go. Definitely going to knock out, and this Obstagoon has 1 more move, and it's going to be swapped and saved for later because Shadow Nidoqueen is on the field.
Yeah, that Shadow Nidoqueen now facing off against the Altaria on Ilum's side of the field. This Poison Fang allowed to connect will get that defensive drop and will start the slow process of knocking this very bulky Pokemon out. At least the Shadow Nidoqueen is taking a decent amount of damage from those fast moves and certainly would be knocked out by the Sky Attack at this point, but Doombug finally ready to invest those shields.
And this is exactly where Shadow Nidoqueen thrives, into Protect Shield situations. Just these Poison Jabs are just adding up too much. The Poison Fang will pretty much knock out in this scenario, so Altaria might be forced to Protect Shield. There's the Protect Shield. There is a switch available. Do you try to reset your Altaria or just go for the Sky Attack? There's the Sky Attack right before the Poison Fang. Excellent timing.
Yeah, and what a tough play, though, having to decide to shield that Poison Fang with the defense drop on top of everything. We see Ilum going for the reset now, trying to switch in that Lickitung to face off against whatever Pokemon Doombug sends in, and it's going to be his own Altaria, but only for a moment, as the Obstagoon jumps in and goes for the cross chop immediately.
Brilliant play by Doombug here because Lickitung has no choice but to throw a Body Slam to finish off this Obstagoon. You can never lick it down, so you have to throw your energy, and at this point, you're nearly at 50% health. This low health, even Protect shields it to do more damage against this Lickitung.
Again, this Obstagoon is one of those Pokemon that puts on so much pressure with its fast move of counter against the normal type Lickitung that you can shield here, knowing that it's going to take your opponent a few turns to get to the next charge move attack. Is able to use Lick to pick up that knockout, but still, there's so much damage on the board already for this Lickitung. It almost can get to 2 body slams, but it's going to need at least a couple of more to knock out that Altaria in return.
It was a heavy cost to lick down that Obstagoon as the Body Slam lands. You can see by how much that did. 2 Body Slams will not do it. This Lickitung will need to get to another, but this Altaria is already nearly at that energy. Probably is going to throw it any second now, and it's just going to go for the Dragon Breath down instead.
The confidence there, having that charged move available for the immediate return of Ilum's own Altaria will secure the knockout, and now Doombug is just 1 win away from getting that ticket to Worlds and making it back up into the Grand Finals. Ilum had the right idea there, making the adjustment to leave the Medicham behind, given just how well Dunebug would have handled it on paper, both in the previous matchup and the first game as well, but still was able to find alignment, and that Obstagoon, just what incredible play.
Yes, and that pivot right there. That Obstagoon was about at 20% health. Instead of just taking the alignment, deciding to swap out with it and using it in an advantageous spot later against that Lickitung, because you pressure it so much, the Licks aren't doing anything, your counters are super effective, you even force a Protect Shield with your Night Slash at the end there, because if it let a cross chop go, that would have almost knocked out the Lickitung. So really smart plays by Dunebug there, and I love that, to play less for alignment, more for flexibility and using these low health Pokemon to take an advantage in the in-game, because if he just let that Obstagoon go, that in-game would have been incredibly close. It could have been anyone's game, but saving it for a switch lock Lickitung was the best possible move.
And the fact that he is up 2-0 now allows him to play more for flexibility than alignment, because even if you lose a game or two at this point, you still have one more shot to win the set. And I love how he's adjusting his play style to reflect that. You don't have to make those big reads. You don't have to make those big plays or predictions. You can just go with the consistent line into the team, you know, play your best, try to maximize your outs in any given win condition, and then know that you have that security. Ilum, on the other hand, is really going to have to play some incredible games to tie up the score, and I'm wondering if there is a single Pokemon adjustment or maybe a strategy adjustment he can make to just handle Dunebug's lines a bit better. Yeah,
the thing is, when you're at a slight team composition disadvantage, sometimes you just need to have a little bit of good matchups. You need to put your Pokemon in the right positions to succeed. That's what Dunebug has been doing so far, picking his spots for the right moments. That's how Ilum needs to adjust. Either needs to hard call some lineups and win games that way, or just adjust his play style and try to pick his spots to defeat Dunebug in reverse sweep in this best-of-5 series.
I mean, we have seen the reverse sweep happen before, and it certainly is one of the more exciting things for the viewers to watch at home, but very stressful for the players on stage. And I mean, you can see Dunebug and Ilum just running through these possibilities in their head right now. You know, you really have to have a game plan. You really have to almost play out the matchup in your mind and try and, you know, preload the switches, preload when you're going to go for your charged moves, because you're only given a half second to react or to determine if you want to throw an attack or if you want to go for the charged move, and you can't just react that quickly. Like, some people probably can, but I feel like most people need that extra time to just think, okay, Stunfisk versus the Trevenant is out on the field. Do I want to keep the Trevenant in, or do I want to switch out? Let's see. This is game number 3.
And Dunebug is one win away for qualifying for the World Championships this year and has a positive lead against this Galarian Stunfisk. Throws on charge move priority, goes for the Shadow Ball, no need to bait, and this, I believe the Rock Slide is going to be coming back. There comes the first Protect Shield.
The first Protect Shield of the game. A Rock Slide now thrown by the Galarian Stunfisk. Dunebug not matching that shield, but that's okay. Trevenant can take a couple of these Rock Slides, but instead actually making a pivot into his own Galarian Stunfisk.
And I don't know if he was trying to bait out a Medicham here. I think that might have been Dunebug's play to try to bait out a Medicham here, but instead, he got baited and has the Protect Shield, a Rock Slide, and now the instant swap into the Trevenant to soak all of this energy.
It's almost like the inverse of what we saw from the lead from both these trainers. Now the Rock Slide from Dunebug's side of the field is going to connect with that Trevenant. But both these trainers are now down 1 shield, which makes it a tough call. Do you invest the shield to try and flip the matchup, or do you just take the loss and allow yourself to adjust?
Yep.
Dunebug also keeping that Obstagoon hidden in back.
Yeah, the tides have turned here. It was G-Fist versus Trevenant, and now Galarian Stunfisk versus Trevenant. The Shadow Ball is not quite enough, so you see that no Protect Shield out of Dunebug here. And the thing is, you can never mudshot this down. You're not quite at your timer yet, so instantly throws that Rock Slide.
Ilum has a tough call to make here. He can shield to take this, or he can just let it go, lose the little bit of energy that you could get as a carryover, but hopefully gain some back when you switch in either the Galarian Stunfisk or that Altaria to knock out your opponent's Pokemon. It's going to be the Stunfisk, but the Obstagoon is out on the field, which is perfect timing for this Altaria to make an appearance.
And we are at shield parity here, 1 shield apiece as this Night Slash goes through. The Altaria takes it, no problem. It's going to resist resist these counters. And at this point, you could probably just wear it down with Dragon Breath and Sky Attack. It'll be more risky to go to the Moonblast because I think Doombug values the Obstagoon in this situation.
You know the Obstagoon has a positive matchup against that Galarian Stunfisk, and if it's allowed to keep a Night Slash, could deal some big damage as well with an attack boost. So we will see how this is going to play out. It's just going to be those Sky attacks from Ilum. But this Obstagoon is down in the yellow, letting it go. The Obstagoon barely able to hang on and throw a Night Slash in retaliation, but I don't think that's going to be enough to knock out this Altaria.
What a huge call, though, to let that Sky attack through. Now this is maybe in range of getting Shadow Claw down. The crucial part here is, can you Shadow Claw this down before this Altaria gets to a Sky attack? Waiting the timer, but that gives the chance for Elam to switch out if he wants to. I believe the Trevenant is coming in any second. No, the Galarian Stunfisk instead to soak the energy.
All right, it is going to take this Sky attack and be knocked out for its troubles, but at least the Trevenant can make an appearance on the field with that shield support. But again, instant swap from Ilum into that Galarian Stunfisk. Already has a Rock Slide at the ready, and Junebug just lets it go.
Oh, wow. This Trevenant is so close to being knocked out, and it lets the Rock Slide go. It needs to get the 2 moves here before it gets Mud shut down. Needs to get the double Seed Bomb. Here's the first one.
He got it. He was able to throw that first Seed Bomb, and we do see Ilum lock in the shield, but both these trainers look so stressed out right now. It's all going to come down to, is the Trevenant able to connect the Seed Bomb with the Stunfisk? It is, but now we have the one-turn Altaria with the Dragon Breath versus the Shadow Claw.
And it lives and simultaneously KOs, but the Altaria is alive in the back, so that is a win for Elam.
That was such a close matchup, but Ilum still keeping his world's dreams alive. Still needs to win 2 games to move on to the grand finals. Junebug still comfortably sitting at 1 more win needed, and really still has that comfort. You know, can try to make these flexible plays, but I'm curious if we are going to see him make an adjustment, as the Medicham was not present in that previous game. I wonder if that's something Junebug is going to pick up on.
Right, so I believe in that game, Doombug had a positive lead, had the Trevenant against the opposing Galarian Stunfisk, decided to swap in his own Galarian Stunfisk to bait out that Medicham. So Obstagoon had a ton of play in the back, but there was no Medicham, so had to Protect Shield, actually a Rock Slide, which was a crucial Protect Shield, because later on that Galarian Stunfisk was loaded with energy. If it let that Rock Slide go, or if that Galarian Stunfisk went with the Earthquake, it would have had way less energy for the end game there. So that was the crucial moment. I believe Doombug playing a little loose, just trying to bait out the Medicham instead of staying in that positive matchup.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be making that mistake again, but I am very curious how Ilum is going to approach this, knowing that the Medicham question is still out there. You know, we saw him forego the Medicham in that matchup, and it worked out very well for him. I'm curious if he's going to make that decision again, and if so, is that something Junebug is going to call out or otherwise predict? As again, he's not necessarily out of the tournament yet. He does have that 1-win cushion, keeping his tournament dreams alive, and can still play a little bit more flexibly.
Yes, and you talked about the tough position it is to try to reverse sweep a matchup. But let's talk about how tough it is for Doombug, because now you have these 2 wins, but your opponent is playing desperate. Your opponent is baiting with Rock Slides, baiting with Sky Attacks. And a lot of pressure is on you just to capture that 1 win, and you know all the tendencies of your opponent is going to be of a desperate opponent, just trying to scrape and claw to get another victory, to hold on, to try to secure their world's invite. So it's a tough situation for both of these trainers, especially as this next game goes through. If Elam wins this next game, then he has the full momentum of the series and has a good opportunity to win that Game 5.
Yeah, mindset is really everything at this level of play. You have to make sure that your mental game is constantly on top. Focus on the game in front of you, which is going to be a bit of a rough start for Ilum, as that Medicham is facing off against the Azumarill.
Yes, and this is somewhat of a neutral matchup, surprisingly, but in the 0 Protect Shield, the Azumarill is just going to take it. So we're going to see how much Elam wants to invest in this Medicham, because as we see the backlines, the alignment is going to matter.
Psychic unshielded from the Medicham into that Azumarill, bringing it down to half of his health, but Ilum making an adjustment to send in the Galarian Stunfisk, but Dunebug has the Obstagoon ready to answer it.
Yes, and now these super effective cross drops are going to be going through. But the best case scenario is now there's two really good targets against that Medicham in the back. So you did pivot that Medicham, but now it has no other play. And here comes the Earthquake from the Galarian Stunfisk. It gets no protection shielded because you don't value the Obstagoon anymore. Because as soon as Obstagoon wins this matchup, all it's going to be is just a farm down or a counter down by the opposing Medicham.
Dunebug here going for the Night Slash over the cross chop, knowing that he does not need that extra damage and could benefit from the attack boost to spook Ilum a bit further. Is able to secure the knockout on that Galarian Stunfisk, and now Ilum sending in that Medicham to counter down the Obstagoon, but like you said, it has won that matchup. But here's a mix-up. It's the Trevenant out on the field instead of that Azumarill.
Brilliant decision, calling the backline of a Lickitung in the back, deciding to come in with this Trevenant. Here comes the switch into the Lickitung, met by the Azumarill, but Ilum is not out of it because double Protect Shield Lickitung has a chance against this backline to Dunebug.
All right, that Azumarill has already taken so much damage. A Power Whip or plus some licks might be enough to pick up that KO, but Dunebug already at the second play rough. Ilum shielded the first, Ilum shielding the second. His win condition rides on this Lickitung, and he needs to keep it as healthy as possible to get to those 2 Power Whips needed to secure the knockout, possibly even 3 if Dunebug decides to start investing some shields here.
Yes, and that was the most efficient use of Lickitungs and Ilum shields there, because Play Rough is going to do more damage to Seed Bomb. You already know what the opponent is in the back, and here comes another Body Slam trying to throw it before the Ice Beam of the Azumarill. Do you pick up the next Protect Shield? Does Azumarill want to stay alive? He does. He wants to get one more charge move off before the timers are back.
All right, that Play Rough will connect with the Lickitung, but like we were saying, this is not going to be enough for a knockout. And it's nowhere near enough for a 2 knockout. This Trevenant has such a tall ask for it, facing off against this Lickitung. Already has a Seed Bomb there, ready to go, ready to deal some damage, but Lickitung's going to be dealing super effective damage with these licks. I'm not sure if that Trevenant has enough time to get to a second, especially since the Power Whip is already there.
It's not very effective, but it's gonna do a lot. It's probably gonna knock out this Trevenant. It does. The Trevenant gets knocked out, and now this Azumarill not only has to finish off this Lickitung, it's just slowly bubbling away. Lickitung is too fast, and Body Slam, and Ilum takes a victory, and it's now tied 2-2.
Momentum is going to be key for both of these trainers. Dunebug taking that early lead in the set 2-0, but Ilum able to tie it up. There is only one more game remaining for this set. Whoever wins is going to Yokohama. They're going to have their ticket to compete at the Pokemon World Championships there next summer. Whoever loses will be knocked out of this tournament and will have to try again to win that incredible prize. There is just so much pressure on the line here, and Ilum has done such an amazing job of calling the fact that Dune's Pokemon have been relatively similar in these matchups over the past couple of games. I have to wonder if Dunebug is going to really mix things up for this final match, knowing that this is his last shot.
The momentum has completely flipped here. I thought at first Ilum's play last game was a little bit clumsy. To pivot on the Medicham, knowing it's probably going to bring out the Obstagoon, and Medicham will no longer have any viable targets, but you successfully baited out that Obstagoon with the Galarian Stunfisk, and then Lickitung against the back line was amazing. So that was a brilliant strategy from Ilum there. Now the momentum is completely swapped. Dunebug is the one with the back against the wall here.
He is, and you know, looking at his games, he's brought that Obstagoon, that Trevenant so many times. It's a great core. Obstagoon, again, on paper, fantastic matchups against the Trevenant, against the Lickitung, against the Galarian Stunfisk, but I think Ilum knows to predict that Pokemon at this point in time, and I think if Dune is going to try to get the advantage, try and maybe catch Ilum off guard, I think the Obstagoon is the Pokemon you leave behind.
That's the benefit of these long series, though. It's not a best of 3 anymore. It's the best of 5. So now Elam has picked up a lot of tendencies, but so has Doonbug. Even though he dropped these last 2 games, he has the opportunity to adjust and bring his best line that he feels will take the next victory to punch his ticket to Worlds. So I expect an adjustment out of Doonbug. We've seen so far, Doonbug was more willing to play a versatile, fluid play style, and we saw recently Ilum was willing to do the same exact thing. So they're now on the same page here going into this decisive game number 5.
You have to wonder, though, if some of that desperation is going to come into play from both these trainers as well, just knowing that this is their last shot. They look so calm on stage, and I quite frankly don't know how, because there is just so much riding on this match. All of these matchups were so close, and I mean, how do you even decide on what kind of adjustments you want to make in this situation? It's almost like you have to make a call. Is your opponent going to go for that more flexible play style to match what you've been doing if you're Doonbug? Or do you want to rely on possibly just bringing 3 Pokemon that they can't shut down regardless of how they decide to play?
I mean, this is your one shot, one opportunity. I think you try to go with your best line here and don't get in each other's heads too much. You can't do that circular thinking. You just got to go with what the best lineup is, what you think it is against the opponent, as Elam is just taking one more second to get locked into this decisive game 5. I think he is about to be clicking on that button to get into this, but final last adjustments are coming out from Elam, because, I mean, wow, thought about it this whole time, and I think is making some last second tweaks, so really is taking this very seriously for your one chance, and they are both locked in this decisive game number 5 to make it to Worlds, and it's Altaria versus Altaria.
Oh man, it is Altaria versus Altaria as the lead, and it looks like both these trainers are going to be sticking in this matchup for a little bit of time to get that energy and possibly put some shield pressure on the opponent as well. And it looks like Doonbug is the first one to go for the sky attack. Will Ilum shield? He does.
He does protect shield here, so he could flip this matchup or maybe throw, looks like lost charge move priority, so that's a big key piece of knowledge for Doonbug, knowing that you will get to the next sky attack and land that first. So here comes the pivot in the Trevenant, trying once again to bait out the Obstagoon, and is successful.
So the interesting thing here is that Doonbug's backline also has the Trevenant present. For Ilum, it's going to be that Lickitung again. So Obstagoon is going to be such a critical Pokemon for Doonbug. Whether or not he recognizes that, though, is going to be key. The Seed Bomb, allowed to connect, does a decent amount of damage, but the Obstagoon is already at a Night Slash, and Ilum's just letting it go.
Ilum did it once again, baited out the Obstagoon, now has Lickitung probably match up against that Trevenant in the backline, as Trevenant's going to get to one more Seed Bomb before the Night Slash, and Obstagoon's going to no Protect Shield this. Probably Ilum's going to come in straight away, not going to tick down the switch timer as the Seed Bomb lands, but you cannot counter down. You actually have to throw a Night Slash to finish off this Trevenant.
Yeah, that Obstagoon taking a couple more turns to generate some energy, possibly hoping to have a Night Slash or a Cross Chop available to it after this switch. But for now, the Trevenant is going down, and now Altaria is back out on the field. Obstagoon unable to switch, just going to throw that Night Slash for a little bit of chip damage before being taken out by the Dragon Breath.
And there it was, did not wait the switch timer at all. There's the pivot, there's the crucial pivot, knowing Lickitung is in the back. Here comes that Lickitung, that Obstagoon at almost no health could be a key factor at the end of this game.
The Trevenant as well for Doonbug is still relatively healthy, as the Lickitung will shield the sky attack from this Altaria. And look at how much energy that Lickitung is generating. Doesn't even go for any of the bubbles here. It goes for a couple, but definitely undercharges that attacks in hopes of using Lick to regenerate that energy back for the knockout.
Throws the nice there, but interesting decision, because your energy's not really going anywhere against the Trevenant, although you do want energy for that Obstagoon when it does decide to peek in. You have to be prepared. I think Elam at this point just holds, it comes straight away, but you're already at the body slam, so you throw it out. But this Trevenant is going to have a 1 Protect Shield advantage. Do not invest in the Obstagoon. It went down Trevenant versus Lickitung in the back.
This is so stressful, because not only is it Trevenant versus Lickitung, but there's also that Altaria as well that's in the red. These Seed Bombs are going to take a while to catch up to the damage that Lick is doing from this Lickitung. At least you don't have to worry as much about Power Whip as you do Body Slam, but that Lickitung is still just almost there. and he's waiting to throw.
Yes, and going straight for the power whip. Elam thinking this is your win condition. Is Doombug gonna try to call the bait here? This is a crucial no shield, and he no shields the power whip. And do you try to swap on this seed bomb? Gaining energy, scared of the swap, trying to get the double seed bomb was too greedy.
Oh.
And he has a protect shield left though. The thing is, can these double seed bombs finish off Elam's team? It needs to knock out the Lickitung and the Altaria. Here comes the Altaria, swaps into the seed bomb. Is this enough?
I don't know. It's going to be close as Altaria will resist this grass type attack. It connects. It's not very effective, and it's not enough. And that Trevenant isn't even able to throw the second seed bomb. Elam is able to win his ticket to Worlds, win his way back up to Grand Finals, and keep that champion title dream alive.
Wow, what a series.
Be able to win again against Elam with his team of the Trevenant, the Galarian Stunfisk, the Altaria, the Lickitung, the Swampert, and the Medicham. I don't know, Elam's looking like he's having a good time, but hopefully he's going to bring that confidence in with him as, you know, what a tough back-to-back game for him to jump into.
You know, I think a little bit of pressure is off you because you've already qualified for the World Championships. In their previous matchup, they were trying to win to qualify to be in the Grand Finals, but now he's done it. So maybe a little bit less pressure here. He's going to be a little more loose against House Stark, and maybe that will be the key to victory.
It's tough to say. I mean, mindset is everything, especially when there is so much on the line. If you're able to shake off those losses a little bit easier, maybe not take yourself too seriously, it allows you to approach the game in a bit of a more fluid fashion. And it looks like House Stark is getting a little bit of a chuckle in there as well. So, you know, we know these trainers are friends. We know that they're going to have a fun time playing against each other. But let's go ahead and sort of recap what we saw in the winners finals, as I think that's really where we're picking up in terms of this matchup. And it was just back and forth for both these trainers. You know, nobody took that early 2-0 win. It was just constantly trading based off of their adjustments. And again, House Stark was at a disadvantage when he made that Earthquake play. So that is definitely something that both these trainers have to keep in mind, is that those options are on the field. But still, you know, how do you lock into a line knowing that it was just so close the first time around?
Yes, it was incredibly close. And not only that, Elam has had some time to practice, get a little better, improve a little bit, because the Obstagoon was the Pokemon that was giving him a little bit trouble at the end of the House Stark series, and then at the entire beginning of the Doombug series, going down 0-2, and then making that adjustment to try to bait out the Obstagoon to have the Lickitung in the back. So he has a strategy that has been working for that Obstagoon line, but House Stark has been watching. House Stark saw the adaptation by Elam and probably thinking of his own way to deal with that, as we are almost, and we are in the lock-in. This is the Grand Finals. It is House Stark versus Elam, and it is a Galarian Stunfisk into Altaria.
Already, House Stark taking the advantage on this lead, but Elam is not going to let him have that for long, switching in his own Galarian Stunfisk, drawing out the Obstagoon from House Stark.
Once again drawing out that Obstagoon, but this time doesn't necessarily have another Pokemon weak to Obstagoon in the back like the Lickitung. Didn't bring it to this game as the Earthquake lands. This isn't terrible, actually, in the zero Protect Shield situation.
Yeah, Elam once again going to favor these Earthquakes apparently over the Rock Slide to just try and get that early big damage down onto the board. House Stark going straight for a cross chop here, and Elam lets it go. It's probably not going to be enough to knock it out, but the big question is, will he be able to get to a second charge move prior to this Obstagoon? But there was already a second cross chop banked.
And just letting it go, the Rock Slide will not get off because the Galarian Stunfisk gets knocked out here, and this Obstagoon has a little bit of health, this time actually waiting the timer out. So deciding to wait that out, probably going to have to come in with the Altaria to Dragon Breath down because you resist the counters. You're probably going to have to take a parting Night Slash though, and here it comes.
Yeah, this will be a nice little bit of chip damage on the way out, but I think I'm more curious about which Pokemon House Stark is going to send in once Dragon Breath is able to knock out that Obstagoon.
Oh!
I don't think that made too much of a difference there, though.
No, just a little more damage on that double counter, but doesn't change things too much. And here comes the Swampert into the knocked out here. So this isn't great for the Swampert. This is fairly neutral. And the thing is, your mud shots are double resisted by this knocked out. And as we see before, the shadow or the regular Swampert cannot knock out with 2 Hydro Cannons.
Yeah, and House Stark knows this, and House Stark is preparing for it, as it looks like Ilum will be the first trainer to use a shield to block the Sky attack from this Noctowl on that Swampert. Swampert really the key to victory, knowing that the Galarian Stunfisk is safe in the back of House Stark's party. This Swampert can hit the Noctowl very hard. It can hit that Galarian Stunfisk super effectively, and Ilum needs it to stick around. But Noctowl actually going down into the red. House Stark saving those shields for the Stunfisk.
Yeah, not using a single Protect Shield, and here comes the last Protect Shield out of Ilum. I like the decision because you're probably going to throw another Hydro Cannon and pivot out and try to save some energy on the Swampert. Here comes that Hydro Cannon. I don't think there's no way. It just lets it go. It looks like House Stark wants to double Protect Shield the Galarian Stunfisk in the back.
Well, that Swampert is already down into the yellow, but it has a Hydro Cannon ready to go. It has an Earthquake. It has 2 Hydro Cannons now. So House Stark will shield the first, could shield the second, but then both these trainers would be out of shields. And I'm not sure if the Galarian Stunfisk is going to go for the Rock Slide or the Earthquake. Actually goes for the Earthquake to guarantee the knockout, probably knowing that he has enough time to get back to the Rock Slide.
And it connects. The only win condition was probably swapping on that Earthquake, and because that Earthquake connects on that Galarian Stunfisk, it is up a Protect Shield, and at this point, Altaria is low enough to get knocked out by 2 Rock Slides.
Once again, it's going to be that Earthquake that gives House Stark the advantage in this matchup, but this time he's able to use it a bit more comfortably, especially knowing how healthy this Galarian Stunfisk is. The second Rock Slide will be enough to knock out this Altaria, and House Stark goes up 1-0 in this grand finals.
There it is, House Stark continuing his winning ways. Won the last 2 games against Ilum, wins the first game of this series, and if he wins this series, he is the champion. Ilum is in the difficult position, has to reset the bracket. If Ilum wins this series, you can reset the bracket and then play House Stark again. Then you have to win that series to become the grand champion.
Yeah, there could possibly be another 9 games ahead of us of this grand final. So please, everybody settle in. It's going to be a fun ride. Going into this game 2, we saw House Stark really, again, use the Obstagoon, get the alignment he was looking for, and then let it go. That seems to be something consistent with how he approaches this game. If he's able to lock in the alignment on his Pokemon, he's okay with letting it faint shortly afterwards because it's accomplished what it needs to do. And I'm curious how Ilum will adjust his playstyle to reflect that fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's super risky, especially how the end of that game played out, where you just let your Noctowl completely go and just bank on the fact that you can land that Earthquake. It is stressful because it could get swapped on by the Altaria, and we get into game number 2, and it's going to be that Obstagoon once again lined up against Ilum's Galarian Stunfisk.
This time around, Ilum has the Swampert and the Altaria in the back. House Stark making an adjustment of his own to bring that Alolan Ninetales, but that won't change the matchup at this point in time, as this Obstagoon is more than happy to stay in and throw these cross drops. Ilum just letting them connect, as they don't do a ton of damage, but it is super effective, and that will start adding up over time. Swampert swapped out onto the field, but this Obstagoon staying in and going for a Night Slash.
That was a smart pivot. I know Ilum doesn't know the back lines, but if the Altaria matches up with the Alolan Ninetales, it's pretty much over. So swapping into that Swampert there, Obstagoon is just happy to stay in, and then here comes the Noctowl. I mentioned it before, it's going to take 3 Hydro Cannons to finish off this Noctowl.
Another interesting fact that we know as commentators, Ilum actually locked into the same 3 Pokemon from Game 2. House Stark making that adjustment to bring that Alolan Ninetales, and I'm very curious how that is going to change. We've already seen a bit of a playstyle adjustment from both these trainers. House Stark still letting these Hydro Cannons connect, but letting that Night Slash land on that Swampert earlier on as well. It is at much lower health, and at this point, the Sky Attack loses on the Charged Move priority event, and it looks like House Stark is going to let... Oh, no, he goes for the shield, saves the energy, and is hoping to either force a shield or a knockout on the Swampert.
Finally had to invest in Noctowl because you need to have some alignment in the back. Because Galarian Stunfisk pivoted, it's way too healthy. Brilliant undercharge there to get 2 more wing attacks and a little bit more energy, possibly to get to the Shadow Ball to threaten the Galarian Stunfisk a little bit more, because you have to expect, no, hiding the Altaria. The Altaria's in here. You don't want to switch lock your Alolan Ninetales. Great patient by House Stark to just throw this Shadow Ball.
Exactly, and this Shadow Ball is going to do a decent chunk of damage to that Altaria, which will really start adding up, especially if the Alolan Ninetales is the adjustment here. You would think that if you send in the Alolan Ninetales and your opponent swaps in that Galarian Stunfisk, that gives your Obstagoon the alignment that it's looking for. No swap yet from Ilum, instead going to throw this Sky Attack into that Ninetales, but still, Charm is going to be dealing so much damage here. You don't have to worry about energy, but you do have to worry about the Stunfisk swapping in and throwing that Rock Slide immediately. Stark lets it go.
Yeah, that's going to be super effective, but doesn't quite knock out, so has a little bit of health. And as you can see, that could do a lot versus the Altaria in the back. And now Obstagoon is just bearing down with these cross drops. And now Elam is the one with double Protect Shield, Galarian Stunfisk in the back. You have to use it now. Are you going to finish the game with Altaria? No. There comes the first Protect Shield of the game.
House Stark still has one Protect Shield on his side, but if he's able to call that this is the Rock Slide instead of the Earthquake, he doesn't. It connects, or it doesn't deal damage, but now this Galarian Stunfisk could get to the Earthquake in time. Instead, this Night Slash will be thrown just one counter away. Ilum decides to shield it, so there's no longer a shield advantage, but will get the Rock Slide in return. Does connect, but will not knock out.
No, it will not. It is neutral, though, because this is a pseudo fighting type, not having that fighting type, and trying to get to his timer, barely gets to the timer. There is the Altaria. It's just reaching, Obstagoon's reaching for a Night Slash. I don't know if this is going to be enough. It's going to be dangerously close for this Obstagoon.
It's such a tough call because even though there is the Ninetales in the back, but House Stark makes the swap and uses Charm to pick up the knockout there, and now it's just going to be that Stunfisk, but you know there is a single counter waiting for it. Doesn't even need it. Charm is able to knock out that Ninetales, and once again, Ilum is looking at a situation where not only does he have to reset the bracket, he has to run back this matchup in order to keep his tournament life alive.
And we've seen him do it before. He was down 0-2 versus Doonbug. He came back to reverse sweep, so he has it in him, but really clean play by House Stark there. Great team compositions. The execution was amazing. The patience, I'm very impressed with House Stark here in Baltimore.
I am as well. And again, I want to go back to the team competition composition in this competition for these two trainers, as Ilum brought the same 3 Pokemon in Game 1 and Game 2. Now, if we weren't in this rerun of the winners finals, I would assume that maybe that is the best line that he has and he's just trying to take the upper hand. But we saw him try out multiple different strategies against Stark in the past, which brings up the question, is this just what he's decided is his best shot? Is he just trying to lock in with these Pokemon because he's trying to outplay Stark in terms of his Pokemon picks? It's a tough say. Whereas Stark, on the other hand, relying on that Obstagoon and Noctowl, but making that swap into Ninetales, which really paid off, especially towards the end of that game too, with just how much damage it's able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Altaria on Elam's side in game number 1 was probably the toughest Pokemon for House Stark. So making that huge adjustment to bring the Alolan Ninetales in game number 2. Didn't show it game number 1, went double normal in game number 1, and Galarian Stunfisk bringing it for game number 2. And Elam brought that same team twice, as you mentioned, and House Stark is one win away from being the grand champion here in Baltimore, and he has a brilliant lead matchup.
What a great way for him to start out this game 3, as this Obstagoon is going to start dealing so much damage with these Night Slashes. Trevenant forced to rely on the Seed Bomb, as those Shadow Balls are going to be double resisted. Does a good chunk of damage. That's definitely something that House Stark has to worry about, but this Obstagoon is going to be dealing so much in return. I'm not sure if Trevenant's going to have time to get to a second.
I think something similar happened Doobug versus Elam in the previous series. Elam is not out of this because the backline is very neutral. There's a lot of play if you soft lose this matchup, and you're going to be throwing the Seed Bomb, no Protect Shield. Once again, Obstagoon is trying to get some more counters in and throw right before the Seed Bomb of the Trevenant. Oh, a little bit early there just to ensure the knockout.
I wonder how this Obstagoon is going to fare against the Galarian Stunfisk and the Swampert in the back for Ilum. That was an instant swap into the Swampert, and now the Noctowl is taking the field. Obstagoon's still around for a little bit, but now the Galarian Stunfisk is up against the Noctowl this time. Those Rock Slides are going to be dealing so much more damage.
I mean, Galarian Stunfisk was in the back no matter what, but at least the Noctowl is slightly better than the Alolan Ninetales. Can throw these Shadow Balls, can survive a Rock Slide a little bit bit better than the Alolan Ninetales, but this is tough. I said it was neutral in the back, but this Galarian Stunfisk has so many targets.
It does, and both these trainers still have both of their shields as well, so when they start deploying them is going to be so key in this matchup. Ilum just letting the Shadow Ball connect will not be enough for a knockout, but certainly has to worry, as one more will be.
And how Stark was able to hold on to that Obstagoon at about 10% health. We've seen that before, that if you hold on to a very low health Obstagoon, it can still do something later. And I don't think this Rock Slide will be enough, and it's not. The Noctowl can easily take 2 of them, so the Galarian Stunfisk is forced to throw the 3rd.
It looks like House Stark is going to let this go, letting that Noctowl get knocked out and saving these 2 shields for the Obstagoon, who's going to throw a Night Slash here rather than the Cross Chop. Doesn't need that super effective damage boost, and quite frankly could benefit from the attack boost here. Does not get it. But it is time for another Rock Slide from Ilum. House Stark still has these 2 shields, but it looks like he's saving them for the Ninetales.
And we're right back where we were in London. This is Ninetales in the back to be another grand champion here in Baltimore. House Stark has the double Protect Shield. Great timing by Ilum, and no Protect Shield on the first Hydro Cannon here by House Stark.
Ilum, though, also has shields remaining, has a single shield remaining. It's curious if this is going to be enough. I think Ninetales is going to need 2 Weather Balls in order to seal the deal here, possibly a 3rd for that Stunfisk as well. Finally, the first Protect Shield is deployed by this Ninetales. It's at a single Weather Ball. It goes for the throw. Will knock out if it's allowed to connect, but will Ilum save the shield for the Stunfisk? He does not.
Ilum has the shield in this scenario, and not going for the Charm Down, trying to go for that Weather Ball is going to protect shield this last Hydro Cannon, and I think House Stark and Alolan Ninetales is poised to charm down these double ground types. There's 1 charm, and do we need 1 more charm on the Galarian Stunfisk? 1 charm?
We do.
2
we
charm?
need
No,
2
the Weather
charms.
Ball.
No, a Weather Ball will do just fine, as House Stark actually goes for the excellent, does not undercharge that move, does not want to take any risks as he becomes the champion of the Baltimore Regional Championships.
And a clean 3-0 from House Stark. Didn't drop a single series, and then didn't drop a single game in the grand finals. The double normal types, the Noctowl, the Obstagoon. Dominant performance by House Stark.
What a insanely played set. What an insanely played top 8 for House Stark. Just making it all the way through on the winner's side of the bracket, never dropping down to the loser's side of the bracket, and just giving a amazing showcase of how good Obstagoon and Noctowl are as partners. You know, after watching him play through the games today that we saw on stream, it really does feel like that is his preferred core of Pokemon in the metagame right now, which is very unique. I don't think I was expecting to see a Noctowl Obstagoon core win the tournament here.
Yeah, it's interesting because Noctowl protects its normal typing with the subtyping of flying, and then Obstagoon just doubles down and has that dark typing, so you take the double super effective counters. I think Obstagoon in the current meta is really strong, just because I don't think you necessarily need a fighting type, because Walrein is not around as much, and it's all kind of Galarian Stunfisk now. So you can get away with Swampert's Trevenants to counter that. You don't necessarily need the fighting type. So bringing that pseudo fighting type to counter things like Lickitung, to counter things like Trevenant, that was a brilliant decision by House Stark, and it paid off.
It did, and I really love to see Obstagoon finally having its moment to shine. As, you know, like we've mentioned before, it was one of those Community Day Pokemon, maybe not with the Community Day move of Obstruct, that people were expecting to really sort of jump into the metagame and make a splash. And that didn't quite happen at the World Championships, but it has happened here in Baltimore. And I'm excited to see where Obstagoon, where Noctowl, where the Alolan Ninetales are going to go from here, because, you know, you were just saying this, Ninetales is now a world champion and a regional champion, at least within the past 2 months span, possibly more on top of that, which is also very exciting to see. That's not a Pokemon that really had a place in the metagame while Walrein was still around.
it can completely change your strategy in a game, because if you have that in your back pocket, you can always just throw out the double protect shield Alolan Ninetales on the back. You saw that was not House Stark's strategy in game number 1 or game number 2, or really in the previous series, a matchup against Elam, kind of saving it for that decisive game 3 to become the grand champion. But it has so much flexibility because it can have good matchups versus Sableye so common, Medicham so common, but you just have that back pocket win.